Alright. Hopefully, it has given me the correct mic. Let's see. Let me just turn everything I need to off. Let's see if it gave me the correct mic, because it might have put it on the camera, but I don't know. It'd be easier if my headphones connected, because my headphones are not connected. Why are they not connected? Did they auto-connect to my... Oh, they auto-connected to my phone. That's what happened. They auto-connected to the phone. Can I auto-connect to the computer now? Try turning it off and on again. That should do it. I don't know. Okay, there we go. Alright. Let's go to the camera. I guess we might as well. Maybe I should get one of the lights. Oh. Oh, I didn't. Hold on. I realized I didn't put on the window. So we have the regular ass background, but in reality. There we go. Okay. I probably should put on one of the lights. We will. It's a little crooked. Why is that a little crooked? That's odd. You know what? We'll deal with it. Okay. Let me hear what my audio sounds like. And then I will probably... Yeah, why is this crooked? This is really odd. Hold on. Maybe if I tighten it up a bit. Whatever. It's unfortunate. I don't know why. Maybe it's the stand, but... Okay, let me hear what I sound like. And we might be good to go. Okay, I sound perfectly fine here. Cool. Okay. Let me grab one of the lights while I speak. Alright. So, we're doing this late, because I was gonna potentially do it earlier. But I'm like, you know what? I mentioned it on Twitter. Had an appointment and everything. So I was like, considering the time, maybe I shouldn't, right? I needed to eat and then, like, get ready and go, right? So, that was probably not gonna happen. And it didn't. But what I decided instead was that it might be better to just do it now, like all of it now. Um, I did debate on whether or not I wanted to kind of, in a certain sense, delay it. Or not delay it, but like, I don't know why I'm saying delay it, because that isn't even correct. Um, I wondered if I just wanted to read it on my own time. I very well could have. This light is being a pain in the ass. I think this light might be just fucked at this point. It's kind of unfortunate. Maybe if I tighten it. Tightening it helps. Alright. I hope I can still be heard well. Fair enough, fair enough. Um, but yeah, so I debated on reading it on my own. Because I was like, it's a little late. I don't want to make people wait another week for a review. Or otherwise, it would come out like Monday or something like that. And I think Monday's a fucked up time for a review personally, right? Weekend to Friday is usually what I aim for because that's when people are available. So ideally to me, that's the best time. Uh, so the problem would have been if I was gonna do it tomorrow, which I wasn't going to. If I was going to do it tomorrow, there would be like no time to record. Um, so that would have been fucked. I think this is it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if I did it tomorrow, that would have been too much. I'm hitting the wrong button anyways. I'm pale white right now. All right, that should be good. Um, that seems good. Yeah. Yeah. So problem would have been if I did it tomorrow, I would have to record the review tomorrow, And I like to have good lighting when I'm doing the review, right? Like not like this. I like to have something proper. If I have to do this, I have to do this. On top of that, these chapters are 7,000 words. It'll take us a bit. So I didn't really want to go through that and then record what is presumably going to be an hour long review, right? Just off my previous reviews, that's probably the case. So that kind of sucked, right? So I had to think of what to do then. I'm like, well, how do we go about this? How do we fix this scenario? And it really, it's this, right? It's this, or I read it on my own. Uh, I'm fine with doing this. It's just unfortunate because I feel like this is like kind of a rough scenario where it's like, hey guys, 8 p.m. we'll probably be here till like 10, maybe 11. You know, we'll see how long that goes. But we're probably going to end up being here for a while. That's all right for me. I can't say it's all right for everybody, right? But that's kind of the unfortunate thing of like, this is just how it ends up being. Um, but the alternative, of course, was just read it on my own. Didn't really want to do that considering how far in we are, right? It'd be one thing if we were like a chapter or two in and I was still working on stuff and everything and I needed to get this in quick. And it's like, you know what? Just for the sake of like, let's do the review, let me do it on my own time, right? That would be one thing. Or if it was a singular chapter. Either of those scenarios, it's possible, but it's two chapters and I'm like, you know what? We can do it. We can still do it. Uh, if I wasn't gonna make it for this time though, if I had to like delay it to 9 or something, there is a chance I would have said maybe I do it on my own, right? Maybe I just do it all tonight, you know, read it on my own, whatever. But because we're here and everything, uh, I think it's all right, right? I had some nice stuff to eat. I'm all good. I'm all right to do this, right? Nice and hydrated. But that said, let's hydrate some more just for fun. Um, yeah, I think we are pretty much ready to actually do it now. We don't have any issues. Yeah. Hey, this is loose. I don't know how it's loose. I can easily clean that up, but I'm like, man, this is going down way easier than normal. Oh, I see how it's loose. I didn't even notice that. That's my bad. I was in such a rush to get this up here that I didn't notice I didn't close that correctly. Making sure I have it closed correctly now. I think we're all good. I can test it on my hand. I forgot it was open. I'm making a real fool of myself. Good news, it's not loose though. That's what matters. See? Not loose. But I do get to clean that up. Oh boy. There's actually, you know, despite how loud that was, there's not that much. There's actually not that much that I spilled. I expected like a puddle, right? That actually is not a puddle. That is not bad. Okay. We're all good. Wasn't that much. A little bit damp under here. That's fine. Whatever. Nice clean. Right. Cool. How much did I spill of that though? Oh yeah, no, that was like nothing. Okay. Still have a lot. All right. Cool. It's gonna feel weird standing here, but that's all right. Okay. With that said though, we are good to go. Glad we had a fun introduction there with that. Yeah. See, it was worth it. It was worth it to do this stuff now. I didn't get any of that on the computer, right? Like, just making sure. Okay, it only got the side of the computer, which is fine. That's not where anything is. It's not open there. And it's like very, like, absurdly little. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't get the computer, because that would be a much larger issue. Um, okay. I'm like kind of paranoid now. Okay. No. We're good. We're good. Okay. With that said, let me open up this site. Let's go on down to this chapter we got to start with. So, last time, you know, we left off with the cliffhanger with Roswell and all that, which I'm very curious to see more. Obviously, we're going to see more. Um, and then we also know that the Roy fight presumably concluded, right? The staff was shot at him, on top of the fact that, shockingly, Heinkel is still alive, right? Can't wait to see how the fuck that happened. I mean, I know that was the chapter prior to the proper shot, but like, that's interesting, right? Uh, yeah, I guess we get to see now what the fuck is going on with Roswell. So let's go over here. This should work, hopefully. I don't think I have anything else open. Yep. Very quickly, though, I am going to just get the live chat on the side. So don't mind me. And then, yeah, I want to make sure there's no desktop audio in case. You know, we don't have the constant repeating audio over and over again. That's what we don't want. Okay. Uh, there we go. Perfect. Also, unrelated, but technically relevant considering what the last stream had. We do officially have the full roster for the Rumble. I am going to make a trailer before I show it off to all of you. But we do have it. I will say that there's a winner on both the male and female one that I think a lot of us will enjoy, you know, being there and everything. But honestly, I would personally say I think the roster this year is very strong, right? I always feel like that, but I think this year especially, and it helps that it was community votes, right? It helps that people in the community or like friends and all this sort of stuff like kind of all voted, and now there's a ton of characters that people like. This was the right decision. It was absolutely correct to just shove a bunch of characters in there and have all of you decide it. That was really smart because now we've got a great cast, and I really can't wait to do the end of the year Rumble. I think this is gonna be a lot of fucking fun. It always is, but especially this year, mm, there's some strong stuff in there. There is some. I did some testing. There is already some really funny shit that is just in play, and I can't wait for all of you to see it. It's gonna be so good. With that said, though, that's unrelated. That you'll all get the trailer. I'd say just because I'm also focused on Act 2 right now and drawing some stuff, as well as actually drawing the thumbnail for that Rumble, because I want to draw the thumbnail for it. You'll get the teaser most likely. I'm gonna say I'm gonna try for early November at the latest. That's what I'm gonna try for at the latest. Potentially soon, but if I'm busy working on stuff, I'm gonna probably try and go early, like November, kind of get it in there and just say, hey, a month from now, we're doing it, right? Keeps it short, simple, sweet, perfect, right? All right. With that said, let's finally get to this. Uh, one last drink. See, it's nice. I've had some nice food. I've drank. I also drank while spilling some stuff. I was paranoid there, you might have noticed. Um, I think we're good to go. I think everything is ready. We're all good. Throat is nice and moist. Perfect. Honestly, perfect conditions. The only issue is how late we're doing this, but that's okay. Okay, with that said, let's go in. Roswell and Kleinstein say that they can do it, so why not let them handle it? At the tactical briefing, whilst the Aldebusters were deliberating over who should confront the divine dragon Volcanica, it was Amelia's remark that ultimately served as the decisive blow. Amelia's decision to entrust the battlefield to them without demanding a detailed explanation was not reckless impulsiveness. Yeah. It was rooted in genuine trust, and for that, Roswell felt both admiration and gratitude toward her. The situation was what it was. Even if his long-planned schemes were to be somewhat derailed, Roswell was at least half prepared for the moment he would have to reveal Klein's origins. Ooh, excuse me. That was the identity of the Divine Dragon's Dragonkin. But if we're going to talk about that, it would be inevitable, or yeah, it would inevitably involve touching upon the matter of our contract as well. Naturally, Roswell knew very well whose Dragonkin Klein really was, welcoming him into the Mather's household as a servant regardless. Of course, this was not due to his exceptional abilities as a steward, but rather because he believed his presence would prove to be useful. The long-cherished desire that Roswell must fulfill, no matter what. He believed Klein to be indispensable to that purpose. Even if you were to reveal it, I doubt it would change any of their stances, advice. As Roswell kept trying to remain quiet on this matter, Klein, as one in the know, made such a proposal. There was no reason to stubbornly deny him. In fact, Roswell shared his view. Even if Roswell's circumstances were to be revealed, it would likely not change the attitudes of Amelia or the rest of the camp. Still, Roswell's inability to reveal any details was simply in his nature. Roswell could not face others without placing himself in a superior position. He had to grasp their intentions, seize their weaknesses, and if necessary, he even wished to take hostages to secure his advantage. The numerous years in which he could not afford failure had molded Roswell into a cautious, even cowardly villain. That was why, even though Roswell knew that Subaru, Amelia, and the others were terribly kind-hearted, he simply could not bring himself to reveal his true intentions to them. I don't believe that will be a hindrance, though. The key was not to reveal everything, but to prove oneself capable where it counts. In this regard, Roswell was proud to say that he did not lag behind his comrades. In fact, precisely because he carried the guilt of hiding his true intentions, he felt compelled to deliver results. Feeling guilty? Me, the witch's disciple of all people? Though he had recognized such doubts within himself, Roswell shelved them for later. In any case, without revealing Klein's circumstances, Roswell found himself headed toward the same battlefield as him, and toward a fight against the enemy who had stolen the dragon husk of the divine dragon. And so, let's take this opportunity to put it to the test. That is, all my diligent studies in order to slay the dragon. Well, I mean, we kind of know how that went, given the previous cliffhanger, but, you know. Uh, in that battle, there had been no such trial runs. Removing his monocle, Klein arrayed himself in surging bolts of violent lightning. From his cranium protruded two black horns, and casting off the long-worn mask of the versatile steward, he became naught but a lone dragonkin. As soon as he took a single step forward, flashes of lightning were burst at the soles of his feet, and the initial velocity of his explosive leap emitted a cacophony that tore through the air. Rupturing the atmosphere, each step upon the ground quaked the world as if it were cannon fire. Propelled by fulminations of violent lightning, Klein charged directly towards the majestic figure hovering in the ether. Or aether, I guess. The divine dragon Volcanica spread its valiant dragon wings whilst carrying the sun upon its back, thrusting forth its gaping maw. In that instant, a ray of white uh, coalesced from the unleashed breath, seizing Klein head-on. The dragon's breath was a torrent of pure mana, raw power that had not been bestowed with directionality through magic. Even so, just as drops of water, harmless on their own, could amass into a flood capable of washing away nations, mana charged with overwhelming vigor could easily tear apart the realm of reality. Your address at Curtain's Rise is bereft of all artistry, crude. Swinging his hands down like a blade performing a bamboo-splitting strike, Klein severed the white light that had been fired with might capable of leveling a city. The breath was split clean down the middle, and passed straight behind him as if it were trying to avoid a direct hit. In exchange, the scorched ground was upheaved. Rock fragments were pulverized until they turned to sand, before being melted all down into vicious streams of red lava. Leaving all of that in his wake, Klein pressed forward, his body leaping high up as he drew ever closer to the dragon amidst the heavenly skies. Gee, you impudent little shit. The roaring dragon gyrated its body, delivering a swing of its thick, tenacious tail. Striking the wind dead, the tail whip revolved relentlessly, and leaving no place to run, it seized Klein head on. Roaring thunder crackled. Purple lightning of a noticeably stronger degree illuminated the sky, and a moment later, it was the dragon's tail that had found itself repelled. The principle mirrored his earlier ground kick acceleration. A shockwave generated by the eruption, the violet bolts surging around his body. Whilst airborne, Klein had triggered the phenomenon at his feet, using the impact as a foothold. Then, by fulminating lightning through his shoulder, elbow, and down to his fist, he repelled the dragon's tail with an unbelievably powerful punch. No, yeah, this is like the hard counter. It's very interesting. And frighteningly, the purple lightning was, bear with me for a little longer, inexhaustible. Let me take a quick drink. Yeah, this is a very interesting. Like, we kind of saw the scenario with the previous chapter's cliffhanger of this is probably going to be a problem for Roswell, even though he is, so strong with magic. But this is like the hard counter because this is what Volcanica was. So it's really interesting. Because, like, you could argue that Al in there, right, uh, is limited to the knowledge of what obviously Volcanica has, but like what he is technically, oh, sorry about that, what he's technically capable of producing to a certain extent versus Klein, who is familiar, right? Like both of them are technically familiar with, what it can do, but Klein has just outright been Volcanica for a while, for like, however long it's been since he stepped away from that. So it's kind of interesting because now he would know the limits and capabilities of this dragon. I really like it. As if ignoring the fine weather of those cloudless, clear skies, those surging flashes of lightning were discharged ad nauseum. Whoa! Raising its voice in anger, the dragon beat its wings and swiveled through the air. In the surroundings of that dragon, Klein dashed about freely, accelerating with each eruption of indigo lightning. As before, eruptions of purple lightning at the soles of his feet kept Klein airborne. I'm now realizing, I think I'm gonna grab a clip later of the intro to this stream, and I'm gonna put it on Twitter, but I'm gonna like cut it off right at the worst moment. Uh, but bestowing the wingless dragonkin the right to maneuver through the sky as he pleased. Of course, the diligent dragonkin was not merely enjoying a leisurely stroll through the air, and he did not forget to unleash ferocious offensives against the dragon. Evading the dragon's claws by a hair's breadth as they swung at him, he drove lightning clad okay. He drove lightning clad strike into the face of the opponent, with whom he harbored far too great a difference in both stature and reach, and thereupon did he unleash the apotheosis of all thunderbolts. This assault, layered with the twofold preparations of strike and fulmination, was not performed merely once or twice. In the blink of an eye, it repeated 10, 20 times. Shit. Its dominance of the airspace robbed by the overlapping eruptions of purple voltage, the dragon spat that out and ascended to a higher altitude. Possessing wings, it was the special right of the divine dragon to choose its battlefield, and not merely on the ground, where the wasteland stretched out as far as the eye could see, but even in the sky, covering 360 degrees in three-dimensional space. However, I'll do it. Ascending to a high altitude, the divine dragon's head plunged right into an enormous mass of water, losing all sense of up and down. Exhaling a large air bubble out of astonishment, the divine dragon's colossal body was swallowed by a sphere of water spanning over several dozen meters in diameter, created by focusing the moisture in the surroundings and the streams of water on the surface together at a single point. As the water pressure began to creak, the divine dragon, held captive in its aquatic gaol, widened its golden eyes. To think you would forget about me and become so invigorated. How cold. Beneath the dragon, Roswell, who had imprisoned the dragon in the water sphere, flashed a smile. Licked by the by the lips, what? Licked by the lips, huh? Well, licked by the tongues, yeah, technically speaking, not better. Licked by the tongues of the heat wave from the breath that Klein had initially severed. The surface of the ground had been transformed into glass of black luster. Yeah, and standing atop it, Roswell pointed to the sphere of water in the heavenly skies and folded it in on itself. Duet signified an instrumental duo, and so his magic did not end at merely entrapping the opponent in the sphere of water. Immediately after, the water sphere in which the dragon had been sealed began to froth with a scintillating heat, reaching a boiling point. Yeah, fair enough. Thereupon, I'm getting thrown off because of that. Thereupon, violet voltage flashed a degree yet stronger. I shall now get a bit flashy. Roaring thunder. I like how that's not even something that, that essentially defines what he's saying. It's just him, like, using an attack, right? Like technically speaking, it's him stating that he's going to get flashier in the sense of that thunder, but that also feels like he's just being very direct with it. The thunderclap unleashed by Klein's fist harmonized as it thrust into the water sphere. That instant, the voltage surged through the entirety of the mass of water, frying the water sphere itself, along with the dragon, purple lightning scurrying through all its insides. In the following moment, the heat and pressure both reached their limits. The water sphere burst asunder in a thunderous overture. The purple lightning, with nowhere else to go, cracked through the battlefield. The tempest of steam, capable of rivaling an eruption of flames, blew radially outward as a devastating blast. The water that had lasted through the incandescent, I'm messing up my words right now. It's rough. Incandescent heat poured down onto the land incessantly as if rain from the clear skies. Let me take a quick drink. Maybe that's what I need right now. I'm feeling it a little bit. I might just need a quick drink. All right, should be good to go. The vehement detonation that was induced harbored the power to wipe out a small village entirely, leaving nary a trace behind. While it may have been assisted by a dragonkin, it was a level of destructive force impermissible for a lone magician to exhibit, and receiving the full brunt of it without restraint, even the dragon would surely. Ah, shit. I've cooled my head now. Tearing through the white steam with its dragon wings, the divine dragon grumbled those words amidst the locusts of the epicenter in the sky. Indeed, it grumbled. If it had sustained any extent of injury, the grumble would have likely been viler, or been a viler curse instead. That was to say, the airborne dragon was going strong. Nay, it was completely unscathed. Even though it was something we had known, it's quite disheartening to bear witness to it firsthand, isn't it? Gazing up at the feat of having survived unscathed from the ground, Roswell, oh, hold on, excuse me. Roswell closed a single eye whilst leaving the blue one open. Even when subjected to such an extent of firepower, the divine dragon had not sustained even a sliver of damage. This was neither because Roswell's magic was trivial, nor was it because the dragon had spontaneously devised the most optimal defensive maneuver. Though the latter was closer to the truth, reality was far more despairing and overwhelmingly unreasonable. Master, do not be dispirited. Encouragement. Beside Roswell landed Klein, who had escaped the blast radius and dropped down. Using purple lightning, either or, to dry off after soaking in the water sphere, Klein spoke with an unchanged tone and expression, but conveyed therein was a faint consideration founded in the long time they had known each other. During the long acquaintance, Klein had told him much about the divine dragon's unreasonable absurdity. As expected, the dragon scales and the dragon halo protecting the heartstone are quite troublesome. Further down. At Klein's failed attempt at an encouraging response, Roswell vocalized proof that he had not lost his fighting spirit. The dragon scales and the dragon halo, those were the greatest reasons why the divine dragon Volcanica had come to be known as the most powerful existence in the world. The unreasonable absurdities that would need to be surmounted, no matter the cost. The cloud dragon Missoria and the blight dragon Valgren. If one questioned where the differences between those two dragons and the divine dragon Volcanica lay, the answer would be in the dragon skills and dragon halo. Missoria, still young, was yet underdeveloped as a dragon, and Valgren, having lost the equilibrium of its mind following the death of its birthed dragonkin, had thus forfeited its future. Each of them had proved lacking in the culmination of their dragon husks, failing to forge the same two types of armor possessed by the divine dragon. That was, hold on, dragon skills impervious to any physical attacks, and a dragon halo that wards off all magical attacks. Without conquering those two armors, the heartstone of the dragon will remain unreachable. Reaffirmation. Inducing a sense of despair, Klein's words presented the greatest obstacle in conquering the divine dragon. The overwhelming physical defense of the dragon scales, and the absurd magical defense of the dragon halo. Unless they stripped it of those two powerful safeguards, none of their attacks would be able to reach its weak point, the heartstone. No, yeah. There is some interesting just lore all around each of these dragons. It's always really fun. Like, you could argue Missouri is one of the cheap, like not cheap, but like simple ones. Because it's as simple as okay, uh, Madeline, makes her own husk, which is herself, but like from Missouri and all that. It's like as simple as it goes. It gets a bit senile and all that, but whatever. Uh, but then yeah, so Stride summoning it with the skull of its dragonkin is like that interesting part for Valgren. And then literally everything we've learned about Volcanica, the fact that because of its state of mind in a certain sense, you can put yourself in it, but it's still kind of there. And then also Klein was originally it. Every time we get to learn about the dragons, it's fun. It's very fun. And I greatly appreciate that. Let me take a quick drink. All right. It's not a matter of which, both were required. Unless they stripped it of both armors, neither would they be able to surpass the astounding regeneration of the dragon's mana body, nor would they be able to render it incapable of combat. Ergo, in order to defeat the divine dragon, experts in both hand-to-hand and magical combat were necessary. But then again, Even if its dragon halo is still intact, it's impressive how even that much firepower resulted in no damage, right? It is not, yeah, it is not known as the most powerful dragon in the world just for show. Sigh. Was that not a bit of a proud sigh just now? However, things may have ended up now. This opponent was originally yourself. If there are any weaknesses that only you are aware of, it's fine for you to secretly tell me, you know. There is. The dragon sword. Immediate response. Rather to the point. The dragon sword, having been immediately given in response, was an enchanted sword that made it possible to cut things that could not be cut. With the ability of the dragon sword, it would have certainly been possible to disregard the dragon scales and dragon halo and launch an attack straight for the heart zone. If the wielder felt so inclined, then even just hitting the divine dragon with the dragon sword might have dealt a notable amount of damage. Of course, it was fruitless to discuss a weapon they did not have at hand, and it would not change the situation for the better. As a point of reference for the dragon scales, I will target the reverse scale on its neck. Old wound. As for the dragon halo, I suppose it will depend on your strenuous efforts, master. Expectation. Aren't you speaking to me a little too casually after my first trump card proved completely ineffective just now? Is that so? Though Echidna-sama would have been able to do it. Soli Soliloquy? I guess Soliloquy. I'm assuming it's saying like solo or something like that. Uh, as expected, the duration of their acquaintance went both ways. Hearing that shameless extra comment from Klein, despite knowing that he was playing right into the former's intentions, a flame was verily set alight in Roswell's heart. No, yeah, it's good. You know, Klein's getting better for me. Klein's getting better. I was worried at first because the big thing I heard about his character was how he acted towards the child characters of the series, and that frightened me for how I was gonna, perceive him. I didn't think he was gonna land too well, but I'm glad all of this at least makes him seem better. Um, I think he could do without that first part, but it's definitely like he's. I like what he's doing here, right? That's kind of the thing. Um, of course, even now, Roswell was not so conceited as to believe that he had reached the level of his mentor. But a disciple must never cast shame upon their teacher, after all. The karma of past lives that he needed to fulfill, no matter what, and the deepest, most cherished wish he desired to fulfill. Those, or these breathed life into Roswell's scarred soul, granting strength to his eyes as they grappled with the challenge presented before them. The history of magic was a helix of trial and error, and the same was true for the span of Roswell's lives. Once one problem was solved, the subsequent problem would immediately stand in the way, and he would continue to struggle onward in order to find a solution. But it was by solving all those problems that he had arrived at where he was today. Just as he had done ever since he had lost his mentor, all by his lonesome. To begin with, there exists nobody who stands a greater chance than I. He would initially proclaim it himself. Without a doubt, Roswell was the strongest magician of the present era. There existed none who had a greater potential of overcoming the dragon halo of the divine dragon volcanica than Roswell. No, even that infant oh yeah, infinitesimal possibility was something he had cultivated over these 400 years. It's in the field of magic, if there was a wall that needed to be surmounted no matter what, Roswell, without fail, would find a way to surmount it. Anything less was an impossibility. That was the vow Roswell L. Mathers had taken. The path of thorns he had resolved to walk all by his lonesome. That was why, with the entirety of my being, I shall vanquish this plight. Uh, Alongside his declaration of resolve, in order to break through the under untrodden domain of surmounting a dragon halo, Roswell once again began formulating techniques in the sky of a complexity that would scorch any ordinary mind to naught. I'm curious on how far we went with that, because that felt long. I might be crazy. Hold on. I want to see. Oh yeah, the next one's only 5,000. I thought the next one was the same length. I mean, closer to 6, but you know. Yeah, wow. We got past 3,000 words. That was a lot. Fair enough. Kind of makes me wonder if this chapter is only in like 2 sections. That's interesting if true. Well, I guess 3 sections, because I guess the intro was like a short snippet. So, damn, we're already pretty far. We've only been going for like half an hour with that? What the fuck? Am I getting better? I know that naturally happens, but I'm just like, these like chapters like this used to take us like an hour and 45. Like I guessed it correctly when I first talked about it. Or no, it was like an hour and 30. But damn, if that already took us half an hour, like I know at that point it's just an hour, but that's crazy. That's crazy if we're actually gonna be shorter on time than usual. Damn. We're still gonna go on break after this, of course. Like regardless, it's still probably gonna be one of the times I estimated of 10 or 11. But shit, right? If I'm doing that well, damn. All right. Presumably, let's do this last section. Well, we'll see how many sections there are, but you know. The position of Dragonkin was one which Klein actually found to be quite troublesome. In the first place, Dragonkin were ultimately the forms taken by the next generation of dragons, and, strictly speaking, were not identical existences to their dragon progenitors. Nevertheless, they inherited many of the memories, experiences, and emotions of their dragons, harboring an amalgam within their minds that made it difficult to classify them as separate beings entirely, which we know about thanks to Madeline, right? Like we know Madeline was like that. Klein was no exception to that, and the influence from the days of Volcanica was markedly reflected in his current self's way of being. To give an example, this can be seen in his strong envy towards unrealized potential. Born as a member of the absolute race known as dragons, Volcanica innately esteemed the unripeness within humans as radiant, as it meant they needed to grow and develop whilst they headed towards their goals, thus validating its own absolute way of being. That disposition was carried forth into the present with him as a dragonkin, and now, unrealized beings who concealed within themselves great potential, children, were something that Klein could not help but greatly revere, respect, esteem, love, and cherish. Most of that was okay. uh, that nature of Klein's, carried over from his past life, so to speak, was something that Frederica and the like harbored an enormous misunderstanding about. Only there was another matter concerning Dragonkin that he wished to keep concealed from Frederica, so he deliberately refrained from clarifying that misunderstanding with her and those around her. While that may be the case, it is a tad vexing to be kept a distance from Anna Rose Summer, Petra, Beatrice Summer, Maylie, and Amelia Summer. Discontent. In any case, not limited solely to Klein, there existed uh, an inextractable bond between dragons and their dragonkin. I don't know why I struggled there. Uh, Given that a dragonskin development would spur on the growth of their dragon, and that a dragonkin's death would destroy the mind of their dragon, that bond was evident. In fact, if the need ever arose, a dragonkin would even house their own mind within the empty dragon husk, wielding their rightful strength as a dragon to their heart's content, which we also know about. I've heard that in the Empire. Yep, there it is. Missoria and its dragonkin had done so. Interest. And it lost. Though a long time had passed since Klein had become a Dragonkin, his points of contact with other Dragonkin were essentially non-existent, so he thought it might be nice if he could one day exchange words with one who had newly been born into Wallachia, Madeline. That which she was said to have performed, the housing of one's own soul into their dragon husk, was an act which Klein had also performed many times in the past, returning to the divine dragon Volcanica in order to abide by the covenant with the kingdom of Lagunica. Albeit, at present, governance of the dragon husk has been seized through some unknown means. Foul play. In essence, all that was required for a dragonkin to house their soul within their dragon was the act of touching the dragon husk. But for Klein, his soul's first homecoming in approximately 40 years had ended in failure, his dragon husk remaining in the palm of the usurper. It is not as though I was without concerns, but regrettable. However mighty an existence the race known as dragons was, the means to commandeer an empty vessel did not amount to zero. Yeah, that makes a lot of interesting points in terms of obvious timeline sort of thing. Because the fact that he mentions 40 years is very interesting in that regard, right? That gives us a definitive, this is how long it's been since he was familiar with it and like going inside it and everything. It's neat. I like that. I like that. It would also explain. Actually, hold on. Let me take another drink. Obvious thing, but it would also explain um why he wouldn't know Madeline, like they mentioned, because Madeline was still pretty young, right? Like she is still pretty damn young. So in comparison, there's a difference in age, and the last time he was Volcanica without just, being around was 40 years ago, probably way before her time. So it's interesting. I like it. Um, where were we? Right. In particular, an evil spirit whom Klein knew harbored the power to possess the bodies of others, and he had also discussed the possibility of such a power being capable of seizing a dragon husk in private with his allies. Juice, it had been an awfully long time since he had seen the evil spirit who went by that name. I mean, yeah, we know that most of the characters probably know him. It's just interesting to find out more. It makes sense. Of course, the guy who is Volcanica knows Juice, but it's interesting. I like this. I like this. Um, there's no helping it now. Sentimentality. I can't wait till we find out more about Juice and like Puck and all that because like it's such a mystery right now, and once we get the full documented info of like 400 years ago, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. I feel like Klein will be a like key point to reaching that info, but I'm excited. Regardless, Klein knew that it was possible for a dragon to have its dragon husk hijacked, and that in order to recover said dragon husk, there was a need to strike its heartstone. The problem was, it was a divine dragon's dragon husk that had been annexed, so its dragon skills and dragon halo were obstructing the way to its heartstone. I will deal with the dragon scales by piercing the reverse scale, so the master must surmount the dragon halo. Devotion. Uh, oh, a bit too far. By way of the absolute defense belonging to the divine dragon, the Heartstone was protected behind its dragon scales and dragon halo. The feat of striking that, with a victory condition for this battlefield, levied upon Klein and Roswell. Fortunately, there stood a prospect for breaking through those dragon scales. The old white scar carved into its neck at the culmination of its deadly clash against the sword saint Raid Estrella was the one and only opening in that absolute defense. And I feel like I think I remember some of the art having that exact scar, but maybe I'm wrong. The fact that in the end, that which has become our means of grasping victory is a blow dealt by that insolent fool or fellow. I was gonna say fool. Technically, either or works. How truly aggravating. Infuriation. That dragon meat eating freak. That's a that's a title, all right. That's a title. Hey, to pay. Um, there's some slang in other places that might paint a different image with that. Uh, was always going, give me your damn tail or give me your damn guts, and so forth, before ultimately staking his attempts to carve out his heart. Just what in the world had he thought of his traveling companion on their journey? At the end of it all, they had clashed in an attempt to sever the other from the thread of life. Irrespective of the circumstances of the wound's origin, there already existed a breach in the dragon scales. Ergo, the path that would lead them to triumph depended on whether or not Roswell could surmount the uh, palisade that was the dragon halo. It is my duty to buy time for that purpose. Concentration. For 400 years, Roswell had devoted himself to diligent studies, and now he would he would be put to the test, standing witness to the ordeal extreme to the utmost, or to that ordeal extreme. Klein once again reapproached his troublesome position of Dragon King. After all, Klein could not help but find the dazzling blaze that was Roswell's life, having commenced as but a seeding of unripeness, as something that ought to be esteemed, beloved, and cherished. Haran. Harrowing the heavens, harrowing the heavens, frightening the lands, and imperiling the world, the roar of the divine dragon thundered far and wide. A mighty voice initiated quakes all throughout heaven and earth, rending the sky as its resonance took shape as a torrent that deluged Klein in its entirety. The bellow ravaged aught in its path, and swallowed by it, Klein's body was also sundered, rupturing before that could transpire. A, uh, a voluminous cloud of mist emerged, and plunging right into it, whilst clad in a violacious terravolts, the roar of the heavens quite literally dispersed into the mist. Fine particles of water created passages for the sound, immensely dampening the ruinous shockwave. Al trio. Above Klein's head as he bolted through the mist, honing in upon the dragon were tricolored radiances. Red, blue, and green. The tree hold on, drink. I can feel it in my throat. I genuinely can feel it. I was just going and going there and I needed to take a drink. I'm like, I can wait. And then I did that. All right. The triadic varieties of light achieved a brilliant harmony, and in that instant, the swelling of illumination scorched the sky. Wind and flame erupted on a scale of nigh 100 meters, and the glacial inferno berserking through the storm enveloped the dragon, hues and spectacle befitting the world's end, painting the clear skies of the battlefield with the spitting image of hell. Into that hellscape, Klein thrust himself forth, galloping through the air with lightning by his side. The world's demise, the uh, sorry, the degradation of the battlefield's sky to hell, to survive even if it was a realm of such absolute death, was the mark of a powerful being who had lived in the age of the witches that wielded their power as if to assert their very existences. Welcome! Reigning over the sky, woven with a chaotic, incoherent blend of colors as it was, the divine dragon bellowed sonorously as it demonstrated its pristine condition. I was about to like use the word again out of nowhere. Uh, Behind the dragon, whilst it spread its wings, suspended in the air were colossal arms of crag construction. Numbering 12 in total, The sturdy fist ferociously burred as if a joyous gesture of welcoming, meeting Klein head on. Sealing shackle. Unleash second stage. There. Oh, a little bit further. Up. There we go. The moment before he crashed into the monolithic arms, Klein intensified the light emitted from the black horns on its head a stage further. Ooh, excuse me. Purple lightning surging around his body, Klein temporarily attained a protection equivalent to that of the dragon. Oh my god, here we go. Excuse me. Fuck, that was twice. Weaponizing that sturdiness, Klein wielded the entirety of his body as an indestructible armament capable of combating the divine dragon's onslaught. A flash of roaring thunder, a detonation of purple voltage that caused the heavens to cry out, pulverized the rocky arms forged by the dragon, actualizing a volley of blows between the two who possessed far too great a difference in stature. He fight with reckless abandon, exceedingly unthinkable for a dragon, creative ingenuity. We're both far past the stage of choosing a clean way of winning, yeah? The recent trend of all my adversaries is that they're all damn strong guys who don't hesitate to come at me with unfair methods, you know. As he shattered 1, 2, 3 colossal arms, Klein nodded in affirmation to that response. He was not fond of self-praise, but as one might expect, the one most proficient, most capable of wielding the dragon husk of the divine dragon volcanica to its full strength was undoubtedly Klein. No matter how powerful the receptacle was, if the contents did not match, its true potential would not be fully exhibited. To make up for that which was lacking, the usurper did not draw forth the true value of the dragon husk, but rather explored many varieties of delicate tricks and techniques that the actual dragon would have never attempted. And the scope of those delicate tricks, arriving at a domain bereft of all charm, began to drive Klein into a corner. Oh, unleashing a tempest of the 12 monolithic arms, its dragon claws, and its tail, the divine dragon began to thunderously churn a maelstrom of light within the depths of its throat. I was gonna say the heart for some reason earlier, and my brain was like heart. I guess because within the depths of its heart is like kind of like that. That's what you would expect, but I guess throat also makes sense. Uh, let's go a little bit further down. A little bit further up, a little bit further down. Quick drink, just in case. We're very likely approaching the end now, especially just with what's going on. Needed in synchrony to that was a torrent of flame and water being compressed in the dragon's oral cavity. Contrary to what common sense might dictate, the flame and water did not simply cancel each other out, encasing a terrifying amount of heat and volume of water with no place left for it to go, seeking an outlet to direct its power, erupting outward. That instant, Klein induced a shock wave of purple lightning to his fore, launching himself backwards to extract himself from the divine dragon's line of fire. Coup! That was prevented by the colossal arms of stone that stretched out to surround him, as the bouldering palms moved to clasp him, even as he attempted to blow them away, for a boisterous dance of thundering bombardments. Get blasted away! Following that, alongside the ear-piercing bellow, detonations began to erupt all across the battlefield, as if it was being hailed with strikes. A wave of heat to scorch away aught that had been birthed, a wave of shock to rend away what was the very world. The onslaught of each granted Klein no method of escape, merely passing a surplus of divine punishment onto the fool who had dared to challenge the dragon. Hoot! Clenching down on his molars firmly, Klein rescinded the bulwark of purple lightning that had clad his entire body. Instead, he promptly discharged voltage through his black horns, generating the maximum output of purple lightning with a valum that rivaled the dragon halo. Even still, supposing the attack were to have been taken directly, not even Klein would have been able to escape a fatal wound. Indeed, if he had taken the attack directly, au quartet, Vocalizing such, the one present to Klein's rear, past the scorched, colossal arms of stone that had crumbled beyond recognition, was Roswell, performing an incantation of great magic. Having taken flight into the sky by means of aviation magic, Roswell had joined the fray of aerial combat between Klein and the Divine Dragon, invoking 4 attributes simultaneously against those tremendous detonations, a feat that cancelled them out entirely. Oi, oi, you gotta be kidding me. Faced with that reality, it was no wonder that even the Divine Dragon spilled a voice of astonishment. The attack from the usurper just now harbored a destructive power mighty enough to wipe an entire city off the map, leaving no trace behind. For that to have been offset by the measure of man, having fully protected Klein on top of that, was a level of precision light years beyond anything that could have been considered ordinary. If there had been even just a single, slight miscalculation, it would have instead bolstered the Divine Dragon's attack, quite possibly scorched both of them to ashes. It was truly a feat befitting divinity, threading the eye of a needle from a kilometer away. Only, this could not be called a perfect victory. I'm beat. As such words feebly spilled out from Roswell's lips, in a state of delirium, he lost control and began to fall headfirst. Master! Haste! Kicking off the air to catch up to the plummeting Roswell, Klein gazed in wonder. The mere aftershock of the offset detonation had torn Roswell's body to shreds, and his right arm in particular had sustained tremendous damage, hideously charred to a red and black chunk of flesh. It was too painful to even look at. Albeit Roswell had mastered all manners of magic, the one and only thing he could not employ was healing magic. As for whether he could continue to fight whilst bearing such a wound would be far too. Don't take this the wrong way, but Origin's waiting on me. Cool. Uh, let me take a drink. Oh boy. Roswell's really pushing himself for this. Damn, already halfway through on this drink, but might be alright, considering the next one's gonna be shorter. So, we'll see. If I have to refill, I have to refill. Klein embraced the severely wounded Roswell in his arms. However, the Divine Dragon did not relax in its onslaught. Whirling the wind in their wake, dragon wings became blades of light in fearsome approach, and violently discharging purple voltage, Klein bolted through the sky as though lightning, continuing to evade, evade, and evade. No, yeah, this is really like obviously there is something to be said in terms of like, oh, how much Subaru helps with planning and everything, but this is proving that they aren't useless, without him. They can still fight. I think in a certain sense his courage definitely gives them courage, right? I could definitely see that being an argument, and I think that is like kind of true. Um, but yeah, this does show they are perfectly fine with fighting on their own. Uh, Whilst basking in the shame of having allowed Roswell to sustain a wound, he pulverized the blades of wind with kicks, and catching the slithing dragon wings with his body, thereupon did lightning fulminate. By the force of the impact, they were sent flying backwards. Forcibly distancing himself, he restored his posture. That instant, the dragon's tail came crashing down. Converting the impact of the discharge into rotational force, the Divine Dragon's tail struck down in a direct hit. Even though he used his arm to protect their heads from the fatal blow, the force sent them hurtling straight towards the ground at full speed. Falling to the ground as they were, the interior or inertia, sorry. Inertia would be vigorous enough to dig their own graves for them. But, and just to make sure of things, as Klein and Roswell plummeted, the Divine Dragon spoke those words and inhaled a deep breath. Amidst the combat where offense and defense alternated rapidly, any action that required charging time could prove fatal. Ergo, the full force of the dragon's breath, a move kept sealed away save for the opening hand, was now unleashed. against the destruction inescapable by even the lightning dash, naught could be done by Klein. Quintet, with all the strength having faded from his body, having entrusted Klein with all the offensive and defensive combat, Roswell invoked the greatest firepower that he had ever charged up. The activation of the perfected technique manifested an enormous magic circle, bailing together 5 lights in the heavens above. Fire, water, wind, earth, and finally yang. That which coalesced these conflicting principles by means of overlapping rationality that surpassed human understanding, with a power of overwhelming destruction not permitted to exist anywhere but outside of order. It clashed directly against the unleashed breath of the divine dragon. In that moment, all notions of sound and color were bereaved from the world. The two unbridled powers contested, vividly tearing asunder the very boundary between heaven and earth. We're fucking turning into Fist of the Blue Sky here. Infernos raged ferociously, the sky froze over, the wind swirled into a vortex, the earth was vehemently exhumed, and all of it was amplified by light. 5 contradictory powers took shape of the great spires of illumination as the battlefield crumbled in a chain reaction. The region that had been merely a craggy wasteland before the battle's commencement was now filled with the thunderous dance of light and sound, to the point that up could not be discerned from down. Aught was consumed in a crucible of chaos. In the sense of destroying the equilibrium of the world, that technique was already on a level which rivaled the numerous forbidden arts whose existences had been erased by Odd Logna. The reason why this had never had its existence extinguished as a forbidden art was none other than because there had been nobody capable of using it to make it worth prohibiting. Prior to this, the only ones who had ever materialized great magic, nay, hyper magic to this degree, were the Witch of Greed, Echidna, and the original magician, Myon Myon. The hypermagic bordering on taboo was fired not as an arrow of destruction, but as one of negation. Master, truly you are. Hats off. Myon Myon mention. Oh shit, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm making a cat sound saying that name. Uh, just who could have ever believed the spectacle of this cataclysmic upheaval was the proof of a lone man's devotion to his diligent studies. Ooh. The journey and footprints trodden by that personage. No, yeah. Uh, long time coming, and I mean, still, obviously, like a lot of characters, we need to find out more, but I mean, it's fun to see all this info now. Uh, or just like references to stuff, I mean, rather. Ooh, excuse me. Many would likely loathe and vilify its details as immoral, repudiating his way of being. But Klein would not repudiate him, nor would he scorn him. He may have deserved scorn, but the impact that would stir in the heart upon witnessing something that surpassed all measure was no different for humans or dragons. Only, Klein had been overcome with emotion. To think that a human could build something up to this extent. Klein dearly loved the potential of humans. Born as weak, fragile, and imperfect beings, the question of what they might pursue, what they might desire, fascinated him to no end. From that perspective, Roswell had nearly achieved the maximum score. As far as Klein was aware, there existed nobody else who had continued to pathetically cling to such a distinct possibility, ever struggling towards it to the extent that Roswell had. If one did not harbor any talent, that would have given up far soon, or they would have given up far sooner. If he had a chosen existence like the Sword Saint, he would have reached this point without suffering to this extent. Having been neither of those, the only quality Roswell possessed was a tenacity beyond all normality. For that reason, Klein had revered his way of being, affirmed his path, and lent him his strength. That prayer yet remains shiningly brightly within me. Vow. Speaking of his vow in such a manner, Klein gently laid Roswell onto the ground. Shedding tears of blood, the matchless magician convulsed throughout his entire body as a result of overusing his powerful gait. The reward for his meritorious deed was all too dreary, or was an all too dreary bed of sand, but he would just have to bear with it for the time being. After all, having basked in the magician's apotheosis, the divine dragon was ever unscathed, thriving up in the heavenly skies. That's some good art. I like that. And thus reality had caught up with Roswell. His life was teetering on the brink. 5 seconds, Master. Report. That which greeted the return of his scattered consciousness was an exceptionally calm voice. However, he did not seem to blame Klein for that. If he had 5 seconds, the divine dragon should have been able to kill Roswell 50 times over. There was a word of them having a no killing rule, so he supposed that they would crush his limbs and freeze his wounds for later in order to render him incapable of fighting, or something like that. Because if it were Roswell, he would have gone that far in order to render someone incapable of fighting. Klein had protected Roswell from that damage, splendidly fulfilling his role as the vanguard. The issue was, my poor display, huh? It was the pathetic feeling of having jumped into the battle between dragon and dragonkin, and arriving on the verge of death so quickly. It was not that he had underestimated the situation, but he had thought that he had accomplished more. Or he could accomplish more. Thanks to Petra's struggle to assume custody of the witch factor herself, Roswell's preparation was spread across the battlefield, which the divine dragon was drawn into, and he had performed in what was probably the greatest magical battle of his lifetime. You could say that he had not fought a battle like this since he faced the warlock of Triestia alongside Klein. Interesting. Simply looking at the results alone, it was not purely a matter of the divine dragon being stronger than the warlock of Triestia. Either way, they both fought him, huh? They both did it. Because we know Roswell did, right? We already know that, but like, knowing this was a simultaneous effort is interesting. No, yeah, the Amelia Camp age is like massive. Like if we go off a medium, right? Um it's kind of drastic in terms of like age because we have like Amelia and we have Roswell and we have Beatrice and we have Klein and we have like, and they're all hundreds of years old, right? Versus like Subaru and all them. Yeah, so it's like all of them are 400, right? At least. Um Emilia's like 110, yeah. And then if we go on the other side of the medium, uh there's Garf, Subaru, Ram, uh Melee, Petra. Frederica's probably in her 20s. Actually, she might not be. She probably is. No, she might not be because she's older than Garf, but she didn't look that much older. So she might actually be. She might be like very, very early 20s, if not like, 18 or 19. It's 21. Okay, fair enough. See, that's what I was thinking, right? It's like early 20s because it's like she seems older than Garf, but not too much older, right? Because, yeah. So it's like they're over on the other side and they're like teenagers or they're adults, right? And it's really interesting of just like there's this massive contrast. Like I feel like at that point the medium of that, like the median of that has to be, it would have to be like either, it depends on how extreme that goes. Because I mean, I guess if we're going off the rule of a median, it would probably be somewhere like uh either somewhere around the hundreds, right? Like lower than 400, but somewhere around the hundreds, or potentially, I almost want to say like 70 or something like that, but that might not be correct. I'm going to say 70 to like early hundreds. Early hundreds could even be 200, like something like that. Like that would be the median of their camp, right? Every other one would probably be like, oh yeah, like here's, 20s, 30s, whatever for that median. But theirs would be like massive because there's such a drastic difference between the two, right? And I mean, you could argue if all the characters were like older than they were, the median would be much larger. But I'm just thinking that in regards to like, there's such a massive gap between half the camp and then the other half of the camp, and yet somehow, not really somehow, we know how, but like somehow it is in this wide range for that middle ground. It's interesting. I like that a lot. Ah, this series got some interesting shit to it. Uh, right. Either way, and then we go down. Uh, we need to change, or we need to change our conditions for victory. Even now, Klein might still be fighting, believing that Roswell would recover, but he knew his own limits better than anyone. His strength was depleted, his body was a complete mess, and even his life force had been largely whittled away by the intense consumption of mana. Even the numerous great magics he had prepared were not enough to pierce the dragon halo of the divine dragon. It had been impossible even with the simultaneous activation of the 5 different types of owl class magic. If any possibility existed, it was in the simultaneous activation of owl class magic of all 6 attributes. But given that such magic had never been successful even under perfect conditions, there was no way it would be successful under the current circumstances. A sensation like his brain was boiling, and pain as if all blood in his body was flowing backwards were indications that the greatest gate of his family, selected for across Roswell's 400 years, was on the verge of breaking. It was pointless for him to continue any further. If what he had prepared could not do the trick, he would lower the hurdle for what he aimed to achieve and accomplish at least the minimum required of him. Originally, the goal of this battle had been to prevent Aldebaran's plans, which they could achieve if they could just continue to keep the divine dragon pinned down here. Thus, he would be clever and adaptable while devoting himself to supporting Klein as they continue to resist here. However, Roswell, you shouldn't be pushing yourself too hard, but it's really important, or it's a really important role. So good luck. Roswell sama, I apologize for the inconvenience until now. Finally, we can repay your kindness to us. Together, we can help that person, Subaru-kun. It's what the master said he would do, so please do not change your mind. I hate the master, but I really believe he wouldn't lose to anyone else. Roswell sama, may fortune in the battle be upon you. And please, do enjoy yourself. Oh yeah? I can, that oh yeah, I can hear, I'm forgetting. I think it's Takahito. I think it's Taki. Is it Takahito or is it Takahiro? I forgot. Shit. I'm usually good with like VAs that I recognize. I'm usually good remembering the names. Koyasu. I know that part, but I can imagine that in his voice. I'm doing research. I'm doing research. I'm trying to see if I am, if I did know it and I'm a fool, or if I made a mistake. I did know it, and I just like I pretend. not pretended, but I thought I didn't. I did know it's Takahito Koyasu. Yep, got it. I'm so good with VAs that I enjoy a lot. It might be a little strange that I know a lot of their names. Um, no, yeah, oof, oof. I've mentioned it before. I feel bad for them because they're gonna animate Arc 6 and they're gonna be like, whew, okay. Like good. That's like, a big fan favorite arc. We're done with that. And then they're gonna see like Arc 7 and 8 and they're gonna be like, oh, oh, oh. Like this is the reason that they sometimes have to get some outsourcing help, right? With like Trigger and all that. And I forgot what the other studio is. I think it's the studio that was doing Don Don as well. Uh I think it might have been that studio or it might have been someone else. Or a different one rather. Um but I mean that's partially why, I assume they had to like outsource a little bit for the first episode, or at least I think it was the first episode. It might have been more for Arc 5 is just like shit. If they gotta animate all this, I wouldn't blame them. I would not blame them. That said, they have a lot more hands on deck and everything, as well as like people from overseas kind of helping out and whatever it may be. So it's like it might be all right. As long as you can get some extra hands on deck, then this might work out well. Um, despite what some people here's what I'm gonna say. Despite what some people might say, um, uh, we had that one Arc 5 episode where uh, I forget his last name, but Vincent, the guy who works on a lot of One Piece and he's done other stuff as well, in other series and everything. But that sort of animation, when I saw that, I was legitimately thinking this would be great for Arc 7 and maybe some of Arc 8, right? As well as, of course, like Arc 6. Like, I think, yeah, thank you, Vincent Chansard. Um, yeah, like, and also, so I'm going to mention something because I'm not going to say, like, I don't like his style, right? I'm not going to say that. Um, I've, I remember because I also, obviously, I actively do watch One Piece as well. I remember with earlier episodes of One Piece that I got to work on, I was a little iffy on it because I'm like, I like how it looks, it's beautiful, but it's hard to follow, right? There were times where I was like, it's hard to follow. Arc 5 and the more recent One Piece episodes is where I've gone much better, right? Much better. I can see what's happening. It looks gorgeous, right? Like the tiger. Like, um, but like it's so damn good, and I really liked it for Arc 5. And I'm like, when I was watching that episode, I remember sitting there thinking this would go great with some of the later fights. And obviously, I brought up like Ram versus Lai and all that. But one of the immediate things that I also thought of was like, you know, there's Yorna versus Olbart, and that's like a fight where all this crazy shit is described as happening. That would be perfect for that animation, right? Just animation where you can go nuts with it and just have these two fighting each other and all this shit is happening like that. That would be great, right? And especially for delivering that 11-second scene. I think the 11-second scene could maybe do without some of the crazy animation, but I think it would be necessary for delivering a really heavy like punch of a moment. I think that would be really good. Ah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping a lot of like Arc 7 and 8 has that. Oh, you know who is gonna have that? Cecilis. When he's like cutting the meteor and everything. That's totally gonna have that sort of animation. Ooh, I would be I would kind of be a little shocked if it didn't. Like that is such a huge moment in terms of this in terms of just the cool factor. That is absolutely like a cool factor sort of moment. That does work really well narratively. But like for the sake of a cool factor sort of moment, that's one of the ones. That's definitely one of the ones. All right. Uh Being clever and adaptable while devoting himself to supporting Fland, that was what he ought to have done. But the next thing he knew, Roswell was standing on unsteady feet, cradling his right arm that had been reduced to a horrible state. It was strange. It intended to fight sneakily, not in a manner of the grand magicians Roswell had admired. Ooh, excuse me. But rather by using the underhanded means of a mediocre magician hungry for victory. And yet, why? For what reason had he risen to his feet? Surely, he did not mean to say that he had not given up. Even though that which he had prepared had been ineffective, even though he had never once achieved results beyond his ability. What? You stood back up? I'd intended to take on the role, however. Roswell was so surprised by his own actions that the unexpected voice did not surprise him whatsoever. The owner of that voice slowly stepped upon the desolate earth, as if depicting the demise of the world, and stood next to the unsteady and wavering Roswell. However, sorry, but I don't even have the strength to move my head. You're too short, so I can't tell who you are. This is far from a role for a child. Who exactly are you calling a child? You knave. You truly are an infuriating man. The other person raised his voice in full earnestness as Roswell, half joking, half serious words, and his unseen form gradually lifted up and entered the edge of Roswell's field of vision. It's not that the other party had grown taller. He had made the ground swell with magic, using it as an improvised step stool to match their eye levels. It was truly a silly waste of magic, yet he did not hate it. Different to Roswell's inner thoughts, the black-robed, green-haired dwarf who had done so crossed his arms, and I shall engrave who I am anew, so that you shall not forget, you knave. The grey Ezocadner shall conquer the divine dragon before you. Yeah, I figured it was probably going to be Ezo. All right. That was good. That was good. Still got one more, obviously. But yeah, he's here, finally. Ezo gets to fight again since, like, the first volume. Oh boy, let me go like all this art. Oh, I didn't make a tweet about that. You know what? It's like it was, we were already starting kind of late. It's, well, not late, but you know what I mean. It was bound to be like this. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break. I think I actually need more water. I definitely need more water. This time I'll make sure to tighten it. And then yeah, when we're back. Yeah, so actually, you know what? I was gonna ask about that because here's the thing. I am not opposed to obviously reading this next chapter web novel wise and everything. I was curious though. That light novel section, is that solely just a segment or is it the whole chapter? Like, is that just a light novel version of the whole chapter? If it's a segment, I'll read that off stream, right? No problem. Um, if it's the whole chapter, I think we might tackle this a bit differently. That's overall what I need to know on it. Okay, okay, fair enough. Okay, that's fine. Then I'll read that off stream. That's fine. Okay. Just because I don't want to go too long here, like I'll obviously read it and have it ready for the review. Um, but I don't think I'll actually read it on stream, especially because it's like I feel like it'll be awkward if I'm like right in front of all of you and like, hey, I'm gonna read this now, right? Um, so I'll choose to do that off stream and everything. But okay, if it's just a segment, we'll do this next chapter, no problem. Because what I was gonna say is if it ended up being a chapter, like just the chapter, but it had additional stuff in it, there was a chance we were just gonna do the previous one and that was it, right? Um, just because of how it is. But in that case, we're gonna go on break. I'm gonna take like 15 minutes or so, whatever it may be, right? Just to cool down a little bit, right? I do feel like I need to like just sit down for a moment. Um, and also refill my water just because, right? And then we'll be back. We will finish this up, and then yeah, I will read that segment once the stream is over. And tomorrow I'll record the review and we'll have it up for Sunday. But regardless, that part we don't have to worry about for now. Let's just go on break. Be back in a bit, right? So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. We'll be back. Alright. Ooh. Once again, I got too quickly. The second stream of this happened. Apologies for the delay. Just need a moment to chill out. Might actually sit. Let me make sure. Make sure if I sit, everything's alright. We might sit for this next one. Just cause, I want to chill out a little bit. Everything looks good on my camera? Yeah. Everything seems to look fine. The camera is still a bit crooked, which I find odd. I almost want to see if I can... Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. It's the cord. I think it's the cord. So, let's try switching it over. I think we're good. Yep. No issues. You can see the power cable now, but that's fine. That's whatever. Maybe tilt down a bit. Like there. There. That's still kind of crooked, but you know what? That's fine. Whatever. Let's move it there a little bit more, just so it's nicer. Okay. Yeah, well, I want to sit a little bit now, because I mean... too much standing. Too much standing for today. I wish I could have this... Or have the computer, rather, go down further, but it's fine. Just because of the camera, right? I could move the camera to somewhere else, technically. Which wouldn't be a bad idea either, but... We'll just go off this for now. Okay. So, let's switch over to this. All good. Yep, still look fine. Alrighty, I'm gonna take another drink. Move my table there a bit. Alright. Final chapter of the volume. Here we go. Pretty exciting. Let's see what Tepei has to offer. I mean, technically, this wasn't going to be the final chapter of the volume if we had done everything on time, right? But we're here now, so whatever. Alrighty. Fulminations of purple lightning. Oh wait, let me pull up the chat. There we go. Oh, let me actually also do that. There we go. Much better. Fulminations of purple lightning cavorted, and amidst the sky of the battlefield, Klein dashed around through a full range of motion in every conceivable direction, free from any and all obstructions. Hurrah! As if to chase the light of that thunderous blast, Dragonclaws stirred the air as if a storm, ripping the empty airspace asunder each time they did so. The resultant Vegas waves shut off the Dragonkin's escape routes. His options dwindling, by that moment. Klein restrained the dragon's aim to himself, and exercising caution to ensure that its shockwaves did not reach the surface below. He maneuvered through the heavens with both prudence and boldness. You have managed to exceed my expectations. Wonder. Whilst evading, sidestepping, and canceling out the dragon's tyranny head-on, each and every one of its blows, capable of reshaping the terrain, Klein could not help but admire the usurper's handling of the dragon husk. As mentioned previously, the usurper had failed to achieve a perfect control over the divine dragon husk. It was something akin to granting a newborn baby the body of the sword saint. To begin with, it was an unreasonable matter. Ergo, the avaricious approach taken by the usurper, electing to use even the dragon husk as a means to seize victory rather than drawing out its true merits as the divine dragon, was something that impressed Klein, further increasing his reverence for the strength possessed by weak humans. However, when the battle began to surpass his expectations and drag on, he realized, the term for what he is. Far exceeding Klein's expectations, the usurper had adapted to the dragon husk, all while still continuing to grow. I heard that you had also contended with the sword saint and the sword demon to reach this point. Understanding. Even while possessing the divine dragon's dragon husk, the usurper had hold on. I was like feeling in my throat a little bit. I'm like, mm, mm. We're definitely slowing down here in terms of, everything, which is fine. We went for a decently big chapter, so it makes sense. It's the end of the night. Went for a big chapter. It's gonna happen. Exerted battles against powerful individuals who could not be so easily defeated, and have thus drawn out a rather powerful degree of its potential as a dragon. From the brilliance of the dragon scales and dragon halo that defended its heartstone, that could be perceived overwhelmingly. The potential of humans, heartfelt devotion, to boast as if they were perfected existences. Just how comical was the way of being of dragons. For what reason had the dragons, as the strongest of life forms, lorded over the surface as if they owned the place? The answer to that lay in their massive, unapologetic footsteps, so Klein believed. They asserted themselves with might, such that nobody would be able to avert their attention from them, such that they could not be ignored. That was what made it look as if the dragons were the most important beings who resided on the surface. Hence, when they lost their place upon these lands, the dragons had disappeared beyond the great waterfall. Although he knew it to be an inappropriate sentimentality, glimpses of the past flashed through the dragonking's mind. Heavenly skies were rent asunder in numerous rifts, amidst gigantic crags and lumps of ice that heaved up roaring winds as they flew past each other, slipping through the culmination of shock waves numbering 10, 20. Klein's mind went to 400 years ago. He envisioned the figures of his brethren, flying away as they were ousted from these lands. That day, those who had remained in these lands were either ones who had strayed from their wires, or who were eccentrics. The dragons that had fled beyond the great waterfall were considered to be in possession of sound thinking and judgment, but if Klein were to be asked, he would give the opposite answer. The reason why the dragons were the ultimate life forms was because their lives had been designed to the most strength. Yeah, to be the most. Yeah. In that case, a dragon must always keep learning in order to never relinquish that seat, and must always continue to grow. Was the fact that dragonkin had been conceived not proof in itself of that way of being belonging to the dragons? Above all, are they truly not aware of it? Snicker. Channeling the purple electricity surging around him into thunderous discharge, Klein pulverized the clods of rock and ice, tessellating the sky in the realm of hundreds, and concentrated the dragon's attention upon himself, before looking down at the ground. And present there, the dragon scales and the dragon halo. Or the dragon scales and the dragon halo. So those were the divine dragon's contrivances to render your trump cards powerless, knave. Rendered powerless. That is a bit of an upsetting way to put it. I would rather you describe it as having been rendered ineffective, or rendered harmless, you know. Is this really the time to be finicky over such worthless things? The simultaneous invocation of differing attributes, without an application of the two-attribute intersection theorem? But, if you mix in a third variety, then how do you keep the convergence pressure of fire and wind under control? It is rather elementary. Simply affix the convergence pressure as the nucleus. It is possible to correct the imbalance birthed in the technique from the mutual interference by applying fire if the third element is water, and applying wind if it is earth. You're saying to make use of the helical interference of attributes? Absurd. If attributes of inverse phases were to clash, the technique would cancel itself out, and it would easily exceed the critical deviation of the gate. Extreme compression, is it? Oh, I did not expect that you would be able to arrive at that conclusion on your own merits. From how it appears, you have formulated a rather novel technique, even though you seem to be self-taught. No, upon closer inspection, it is not founded upon a technique left behind by my house 2 generations prior. Or is it not? Eh. By now, Equilibrious circulation, which views the mana flowing through one's body as a torus, already ought to have discarded it as worthless in the mainstream. The materials on that subject were lost quite a long time ago, but don't tell me you. It, it takes a good amount of resolve in order to pursue the path of magic. To begin with, the book was covered in dust as a street stall. I discovered synthesis circulation from there, dramatically improving the efficiency of mana usage in the invocation of spells. A little audacious after stealing someone's fury, aren't you? I'll admit that I'd served as the impetus for my ideas, but improvements and revisions are a constant for advancement. In that case, are you trying to say that you've never received any training or education from anyone, knave? Hmm. Don't fall silent all of a sudden. In the first place, even if I concede some ground here, for the sake of argument, it was not even you, knave. It was the accomplishment of your forebearer, the Madame Roswell J. Mathers. Though she was not too dissimilar from myself, or something like that. Let us get back on the topic. I have never thought of synthesis circulation. If you understand the main issue with the two-attribute intersection theorem, then I suppose I have no need to explain why tripedal centroid control is ill-suited to multitude-attribute intersection theorem. Are you trying to make a fool of me? Each attribute added to a simultaneous invocation multiplies the disturbance of the helical interference. Even if tripedal centroid control can reach a simultaneous invocation of 3 attributes, any more than that would be no. Just earlier you demonstrated control over 5 attributes at once, knave. How in the world did you perform that? I see. So you want to hear the answer. Very well, I shall tell you. I believe the true pleasure of magic lies in exploring one's own curiosity, and the essence of abyssal, sorry, not abysmal, abyssal enigmas. But since your passion is too shallow for that, wait, be quiet. 5 attributes, helical interference, extreme compression. No, that technique was using equilibrious circulation. That's it. It's tripedal centroid control, superimposed in parallel. In other words, you perform the simultaneous invocation of 3 attributes through tripedal centroid control twice at the same time and superimpose them before development or deployment. Among the second set of 3 attributes, you utilize the invoked yang attribute to support your own gate by fixing the nucleus as the convergence pressure yielded from the helical interference. You formulated the extreme compression between the 3, and 2 attributes remaining, resulting in that culmination. Yes, that's exactly right. That was the breakthrough that proved the existence of the 5-fold resonance point. Are you stupid? It only takes a single thousandth of a single instant of a single maneuver. If anything, even so slightly shifts out of place in any part of the process, it would trigger a helical breakdown and spell the end of everything. Knave, that would cause a second Agzad canyon to form with you as its center, you know. But such a thing did not happen. That is towering distant summit of this blasphemous, or that is the towering distant summit of this blasphemous path. Does it scare you, Ezo Kadner Kun? Yeah, it's terrifying that my own heart desired such a thing, Roswell L. Mathers. Indeed, the 2 magicians on the surface clashed with their diligent studies, sharpening one another. No, yeah, this is I need to take a drink because holy shit, they were going back and forth. I did a fantastic job going through that, but oof. I do like it though. I like when characters get to share their common interests in like an actual chat and kind of go over these extreme details where one understands where the problems lie and the other understands how to circumvent them. I like that. I like that a lot. Uh, what remarkably lively faces, beyond expectation. There was a role he had been entrusted with from the start. Hence, Klein gladly undertook the front line in the battle against the dragon, cladding himself in purple voltage as they violently clashed. But even if he had not been entrusted with that role, Klein, following his own convictions, would have likely chosen to wield the purple lightning against his own former dragon husk like this. The way that humans sharpened and polished each other would inevitably give rise to a brand new something. Unmistakably, that was the desire of Klein, the dragonkin of the divine dragon Volcanica, who had elected to be left behind in these lands, thus being deemed a heretic by its brethren who did not recognize its new sense of values. After all, that was the stoutest pillar of the mentality that would never accept the witch factor of Taristia, which demanded the stifling of potential as compensation. That was good. I'm curious, because of how much they rambled, I'm curious on how long that was. I want to see. I want to compare it to what the word count was. So it's 5,700. And as a comparison, wow. Wow. That was a hefty section of them rambling. God damn. Oof. Damn. Ah. All right. Back to it. Let's go down a little bit more. Roswell did not know much about the one who was standing alongside him, Ezo Cadner. He had heard the name. As personnel who had recently joined the Felt Camp, his capabilities quickly gained him a key position within the camp responsible for internal affairs. Such was Roswell's understanding. Oh, give me 1 second. Excuse me. For the most part, there had also been some information saying that he was a magician. But with it having been unknown who he apprenticed and studied under, he was commonly seen as a mock magician operating privately. And since he was in fact self-taught, that perception was not very far off the mark. However, that perception of him as a mock magician was overturned upon coming face to face with the real Ezo, and laying eyes upon the theories that his magic were formulated upon. He was the real deal. Thus, mutually understanding each other as the real deal, there was no need to exchange many words. Rest for a bit to catch your breath. I will be needing you to push yourself once more. As Ezo spoke those words, he hopped down from the foothold he had made for himself to stand at eye level with Roswell, before taking a step forth towards the battlefield and gazing up towards the sky. With successive firings of great magic and hyper magic, further layered with the clash between dragon and dragonkin, the stagnated mana was dramatically perturbed, and the sky where blue had stretched out overhead was transformed into abnormal weather conditions of rainbow-hued flickerings. Amidst that scene, yet chaining were the innumerable fulminations of purple lightning as the dragonkin dashed through the sky, ever engaged in solo combat. Even after Roswell had fallen, unable to accomplish anything, Klein remained performing his role to the fullest. But for what reason is he fighting alone? You seem to have the wrong idea, knave. What did you say? You mean to suggest that a magician ought to never consort with others? Nay, is it harmony where their true love, or it is harmony, or it is in harmony where their true worth lies? I don't know why I was going to say love. I mean, technically. As Roswell widened his eyes before him, Ezo spoke those words, countless spheres of water floating in his vicinity. Contained within each of those water spheres were numerous fragments of the boulders that had fallen down. At once, they all ascended up in one swift motion, sent towards the battlefield where Klein was vehemently clashing against the divine dragon. That is excessive, or rather meaningless, in such a manner did Roswell grasp Ezo's intent. It was a simple defense of the water attribute. Nevertheless, he was impressed by that ability to easily control a number nigh on 100. However, the degree of water spheres would fail to even draw the attention of the dragon, even if they smashed an entire boulder into it. Rather, they could have They could even spoil the tactics of Klein as he contended against the Divine Dragon himself. I'll say it once more, Roswell. You have the wrong idea, knave. Ezzo's declaration, the spectacle that ensued, took Roswell's breath away. The countless spheres of water he had elevated had not been for the purposes of attacking the Divine Dragon directly. The water spheres and the rocky fragments burst asunder from the fulminations of purple lightning. Having thus gained a foothold as he revolved through those skies, Klein accelerated a degree further. As Klein accelerated, the water spheres guiding his path were deployed across a vast area, granting the Dragonkin launch pads to make his attacks sharper, weightier, and more vehement as they bore into the Divine Dragon's dragon scales. The thunderous crackles and shockwaves were delivered back down to the surface, and Ezzo continued speaking to Roswell as they basked in the wind. Certainly, that individual has the ability to engage in aerial combat by himself, but per my judgment, the original usage of the magical light is not suited to such purposes, and rather is meant to be astonishing defensive ability. Since he is a powerful individual of such mastery, he is utilizing it in a different way in order to fight. But if the disposition of that power is set aside, it might be incomparable to its intrinsic might. But if you create footholds within the sky, it would instead make it more difficult to scatter its aim. Would the advantage of Klein being able to freely kick off the sky not then perish? Do you take him for a novice incapable of switching between them as necessary? In that case, knave, it is not just consideration in which you are lacking, but an eye for people as well. Let me take a drink. All right. Good. Roswell, to fight alongside someone does not mean to neglect considering all matters, and merely have faith in the other person. You entrust what you can entrust, and compensate what you can compensate. With your way of doing things, knave, even if you achieve 200 by having 100 and 100 that would not get in each other's way, you will never achieve 100 and 100 that elevate each other into 1,000. As he spoke of his opinion, Ezzo did not slacken from providing backup to the battlefield overhead. This was a rocky wasteland with plenty of boulders to send up. The water spheres multiplied with enough vigor to permeate the sky, so even if Klein expended them as footholds faster than the eye could see, the quantity of that multiplication far overpowered it. Chih! And just when I thought things were getting too clever, turns out it's Sensei-san. Having located Ezzo as the source of the footholds being utilized, the Divine Dragon roared in anger. Crushing 100 of the water spheres in one fell swoop of its dragon claws, it took aim at the magicians upon the ground and unleashed its breath. I do not advise looking away. Have a look at this. Demonstration. Shooting straight up into the dragon's jaw, from directly below were 2 legs of Klein after soaring upwards. The unreleased breath was thus detonated within the dragon's oral cavity, and some of its fangs could be seen flying out from the impact. You little... Ugh. Reeling back from its own explosion, the atmosphere surrounding the Divine Dragon was rapidly filled with a distorted, warped, unstable yet mighty and authentic magical light. The dragon was attempting to invoke the great magic it had learned through observation. Even if Klein, who could use purple lightning as a barrier, and the Divine Dragon, who could entrust its defenses to its dragon halo, could withstand it, if it reached the surface, Roswell and Ezzo would not stand a chance. In that case, the only option is to have it detonate in the sky. Fortunately, in addition to the mana that had been discharged at random, there happened to be countless water spheres of magic founded upon synthesis circulation that he had been carefully observing next to him. Interrupting the formulation of that magic, he overwrote its efficacy. You knave, that's my magic, you know. Magic does not belong to anyone. Paths forward are constantly being opened, a teaching of my mentor. That instant, Ezzo's control over the water spheres was stolen, and they were bundled together whilst taking in the surrounding mana to achieve extreme compression. The great magic that the divine dragon had attempted to construct had been interjected with interpretation, deliberately forwarding its completion. Induced with the helical breakdown that Ezo had feared, the sky that had fractured several times during this battle once more underwent a grand explosion of collapsing aurora. Waves of scorching heat and zenith cold blew past them in turns, and the crags present in the sky melted, then froze, then shattered. Amidst the catastrophe, lightning scorched all of those remnants to naught, and the wind pressure blew the ashes and dust particles several kilometers away. Are you out of your mind, knave? Your ally there would have disintegrated along with it. But you protected him. This is the harmony you were speaking of, right? Closing his yellow eye in a wink, Roswell silenced the angered Ezo. In truth, as Klein was engulfed in the enormous explosion at the high altitude, it had been Ezo's skills that enclosed him in innumerable layers of water, bestowing him maximum defense from that destructive firepower. Roswell thought that if it was Ezo, the latter would have correctly guessed his intentions and performed that act. The roles had been reversed. Due to the differences in their talents and consideration, such a thing would absolutely not have taken shape. Truly, it was the right man in the right place. As expected, Roswell was an inhuman villain, only he was merely one who still had room to improve, to revise, and to advance. Nevertheless, this deed makes me question the master's sanity. Brute. With that, Roswell felt he could hear Klein voicing complaints after having averted a crash thanks to Ezo's quick-wittedness, but being reapproached whilst confronted with that ice-cold face and all other such matters would need to wait until this battle was concluded. Thus, Ezo Cadner-kun, what, Roswell L. Mathers, called out by his name, it was amusing how Ezo called it back to him as if in opposition, concealing those sentiments of his beneath the makeup that had ruined his by blood and sweat. Roswell sighed. So once again training his gaze upon the gray Ezo Cadner. I wish to have you assist me for something that has not once transpired in this world, the genesis of a brand new magic. Recognizing it as a cowardly thing for even himself to say, Roswell took the offensive. After all, those who give themselves to the path of magic could never even hope to resist such an allure. Very interesting. Very interesting. New magic. New magic. YouTube. New magic. I hold on. I say the YouTube line so much with friends, I guarantee anybody that would view this would probably not get what I'm referencing. In the midst of constructing a technique, Ezo Cadner was on the verge of shedding tears in spite of himself. Stupid, stupid, stupid. These foolish lacrimal glands. Cease your operation now. Just slack off. Reprimanding the functions of his own body, he stiffened his cheeks to hold back the tears. Ooh, sorry. Ooh, excuse me. Alright. Ezo despised slacking off. This was because the dwarf race was not endowed with outstanding physical abilities or gaits, and many of his brethren were required to put in much more strenuous effort than other races in order to accomplish their goals. The sole grace of the dwarf race was that they had a tendency to be bestowed divine protections, but unlike his fellow member of the Feldcamp, Kimberly, Ezo had also lost out on that lottery, and was easily identifiable as a have-not. Ezo despised slacking off. This was because he was forced to live under stricter conditions than most. It was not. To use his dwarven ancestry as an excuse and hold it in contempt as saying, it can't be helped, was quite frankly unbearable to him. If Ezo failed to reach the goals he had set for himself, it would not be because he was a dwarf. If one allowed themselves to make an excuse even once in their life, they would fall into the trap of sloth and neglect in the blink of an eye. setting themselves up to live in a slackened and unproductive, spoiled manner. Ezo knew this well. Rather, that had been the case for his elder brothers and sisters. Ezo was the youngest child of 10 siblings, and all of his other siblings had received divine protections, rejoicing in the lives they had lived, fully dependent upon them. He would not say it was a bad thing. Those were the lives of his elder brothers and sisters. He wanted to say it was bad, but he would not. He could bear it. Merely, he could not bear to allow for that for his own life. Hence, when Ezo Cadner discovered a book of magic covered in dust stored deep within a box at a street vendor, he vowed to dedicate his life to the deep inspiration it gave him, and to never make excuses no matter what. You're the same, Roswell. I can tell by looking at you. Oh, one more. While he occupied the seat of the kingdom's magician of the court, and had multiple colored titles under his belt for having mastered certain magical attributes to their extremes, Roswell did not provide guidance, nor did he ever consort with others. Even if he was as skilled as a Margrave, his position as a magician had been something bought through his parentage and political strength. Having doubted Roswell in such a manner, thus seeking to challenge him, was the unforgettable dark past of Ezo. But in reality, upon witnessing the efficiency of construction in the magic Roswell was deploying, and the beauty of the techniques he was materializing, Ezo felt ashamed from the bottom of his heart. Ezo and Roswell were of the same generation, and Ezo had conceitedly believed that among those in similar age to him, there were none who had endeavored as much as he had. Having devoted the entirety of the time he had lived, he believed he had touched upon part of just what magic exactly was, but that was not the case at all. Between Roswell and Ezo, in both their research and devotion to their studies of magic, it almost seemed as if there existed a difference of over 100 years. More like 400. A difference in talents, a difference in race, a difference in births. He would not credit it to any such things. It was an absolute truth. Hence, Ezo Cadner was on the verge of spilling tears of joy. That there was someone who had endeavored even more than him, standing in the realm he longed for, he was glad. Understanding, reverence, and gratitude all pounded through Ezo's heart, causing him, who hated slacking off more than anything, to command his lacrimal glands to slacken for the first time in his life. With such sentiments in his chest, Ezo once more focused his attention on demonstrating all the studies he had exerted. When it came to magic, it was required to firmly envision the result that would occur. Thus, it was tantamount to an act that would lay everything bare about a person, what they thought, what they desired, and what they wished for. Hence, there were no lies in magic. By witnessing someone's magic, everything about that person could be understood. Hey, you understand, right, Roswell? Had those words actually been pronounced as a sound, or perhaps was it merely a depiction produced by abusing his gait more than ever before, concentrating to the point of his life eroding away? Ah, I do understand, Ezo Cadner-kun. However, contrary to his heart that doubted if it had actually been an illusion or auditory hallucination, there was indeed a reply. The extreme heightening of mana shifted the scenery to white, and despite being unable to hear even the purple lightning vehemently booming in order to protect them, their presences were so close to each other that it felt as though even their heartbeats could be heard. Through a pathway of magic being weaved, the two magicians laid themselves bare, and their consequences intertwined. The days Roswell had exerted, the fruits of his wholehearted research, and the time in which he had continued to walk by his lonesome, aiming for the summit with none ever managing to catch up to him, was imparted. As a result of taking things too far, people would end up being isolated, regardless of their wishes. Roswell, too, had remained by his lonesome. Oh, I need a drink. That I felt that was a sharp one. I was all right for the most part, and then I need a drink. All right. We're good now. But swearing on the tears he had not allowed to fall, Ezzo had something he needed to say to Roswell. Knave, as for how far you intend to venture all by yourself, my current self knows not. But no matter how many people you attempt to distance yourself from, I alone shall remain different. If it was a combination of effort and diligent study that had delivered him to where he was, then Ezzo was the same. Nay, he could go even further. No matter how much you like being isolated, even if you elect to die by your lonesome, even if you decide to venture to a place where nobody else can ever reach, I alone will come to sink my teeth into you, knave. While he might not have understood the feeling of wanting to give up, Ezzo did understand the feeling of wanting to lament. Simply doing everything he could to the fullest, before he knew it, there no longer remained anyone in his vicinity. There was nobody who would wish to believe such a thing as was their own fault, after all. The titles of those who mastered certain attributes to the extremes, red and green, as well as yellow, are all appointed to you. Since the seat of blue has been bestowed to Mr. Felix Argyll? Yeah, I think it was Argyll. I don't remember. Only the seats of white and black still remain vacant. Do you understand what that means? Do you know what it is that they call me? The Grey, Ezzo Cadner. And just what colors do you think gray is made of? Roswell, I am the one who will reach you. Hence, the same gratitude that Ezzo Cadner had experienced was now offered to the great magician. This path you walk, knave, is not one you walk alone. Take a quick drink. I'm sure we're close to the end now. I just want to see. I'm sure we're close to the end. I want to see for fun. Oh, we are very close. This will take no time at all. All right. I am going to have a drink, but we are right at the end. I think I might be able to do this next part without a drink. Potentially. We'll see. I might need one. Let's do it. Let's finish this off. Let's finish this volume. Oh, I do like learning that his title is gray because of that's fun. I like that. Color had perished from the sky a while ago now. Blue had vanished from the clear azure above, leaving only a faded curtain of ash white. The merit of the atmosphere itself had waned. Ephemeral in nature as it slowly vanished. By a streak of light was that faded sky rent asunder. Oh, let me move my mouse. As Klein bolted forth with a belt of purple lightning trailing behind him, no longer could it be described as jumping. It was a force akin to kicking the fabric of the sky open. In opposition was a colossus protected by the dragon scales and dragon halo, the dragon husk soaring through the air with a faint glow. Each time the dragon claws flashed, the empty sky was cleaved open. The empty rifts in... Hold on. Inundating? It's like weird to see because it's like, it's cut off like usual. The dragonkin alongside wondrous crackling. There was not even the leeway to utter a voice, merely purple lightning roared out. Following that, with a beat of dragon wings, unleashed into the resultant gust of wind were countless orbs of light gleaming in the sky. They studded the gray sky as if stardust, carving out ferocious paths as they closed in on Klein. Nearer and nearer, with a flash of roaring thunder, the downpour of several hundreds of light rays were impaled, and innumerable shimmers bestowed color to the desolate sky. The shockwaves from the explosions were all diffused upwards, not allowing even a single star fragment to reach the two magicians on the ground. The subsequent instant, in the truest sense possible, all present bore witness to the radiance of a star up in the heavens above. From far beyond the faded sky, falling at the behest of a tremendous force of attraction, starlight plummeted down towards the ground in a straight line. Hesitation did not last for even a blink of an eye. Hoot! Violet voltage surged all the more vehemently, and the chaining of thunderous fulminations elevated the dragonkin to the sky in which a star was falling. Haran! A little bit further down. The divine dragon's breath was unleashed as a torrent of white heat that scorched the sky. However, the brunt of it was not directed at either the dragonkin in the heavens above, nor at the magicians down on the ground. Rather, it soared towards a land over yonder. The erupting purple lightning and the dragon's breath intermingled, with the star that had been shattered across the edges of the sky, intensely illuminating the dulled hues of heaven and earth. Al Sextet. An incantation quaked the horizon, and the heavenly skies bated their breath. The mana that gave this world form was bestowed with rolls of 6 varying colors, and the power let loose began to intermingle, blending together. The interference that would have normally caused an instantaneous breakdown instead birthed a unique rhythm, utilizing the colorless world itself as an intermediate. I do need a drink. Ah. As an intermediary, a beautiful Taurus was brought to fruition. Before long, the torrent of 6 colors coalesced in as one, becoming a pillar that severed the boundary between heaven and earth. The pillar of 6 hues did not incline to any one color in particular, rather the very principle known as magic, merely elected in its own color for the aurora of its manifestation, a light pillar that returned everything to a power engulfing all. Captured at the heart of that light pillar was the colossal form of the divine dragon. The resisting claws, wings, and breath all were engulfed by Nihil. And as the dragon's power was converted into fuel for the magic, the light pillar grew wider, emboldening it to shine even more radiantly. The light stretched to reach the heavens, perforating the sky bereft of clouds, illuminating far beyond the highest layer of the atmosphere, casting its brilliant light even further beyond the horizon. For a moment, the laws of reality, heaven and earth, were written anew. That was something that neither the original magician nor the Witch of Greed had managed to accomplish ever since the systemization known as magic had first commenced, an absolute miracle made manifest. Ah, in a world from which sound had vanished, that which had resounded all too unreliably was meager praise when compared to the events that had transpired. But it was enough to arrive at a conviction. Here, the divine dragon's dragon halo had shattered. Oh shit! There we go! Thus sealing shackle, unleashed third stage. Thundering the aether and scorching the land, the 6 attributes maintained equilibrium to form a pillar, the beacon at the center of the world, and the sole thing to pierce the maelstrom of aurora was the lightning teeming with purple hues that came crashing down from the heavens. As if an iron meteorite that had broken off from the star, it bolted down from across the sky whilst lightning surged from its body. Legs explosively kicking off the air, it acted as a supreme arrow seeking to pierce a single target. Its aim was the reverse scale. The sole weak point carved into the divine dragon's neck, the ant-sized hole in the armor that boasted an absolute defense. Engulfed by the pillar of light and stripped of its own dragon halo, that was the final barrier that stood on the path to reaching the dragon's heartstone. You have my gratitude. Gratitude. That's funny. As if a comet with purple lightning trailing behind it, he firmly drove his fist forward, shattering both the sound barrier and the protection of the dragon scales. The brilliance of the pillar and the torrent of purple lightning overlapped, and as the impact quaked the empty sky, the sound of shattering was accompanied by a strip of light that dashed through the dragon's entire body. The resolute strike, entwined with the zenith miracle of magic never before seen throughout history, bored down to the deepest depths housed within the divine dragon's dragon husk, finally striking the heartstone that slumbered therein. Oh, damn. Perforated by the definitive blow, the divine dragon spread its wings midair and slowly looked down at the surface, acknowledging those tiny existences that barely clung to life present there. The dragon slashed the air as it brought its claws down up to its own head. As if out of habit, reaching its fingers towards the metal fixtures on the helmet it expected to be wearing. Chih, how pathetic. Trying to play this even while I'm having such a leg up. Can't even blame. the stars. Indeed, an annoyance divorced from all the solemnness befitting the divine dragon, cursing out in such an excessively banal manner. The absolute being that dominated the heavenly skies was pulled by gravity, plummeting toward the ground. Tearing through the empty sky, whilst the flickering vestiges of light with it, alongside the thunderous noise that came crashing down, he marked conclusion against the usurper who had stolen the dragon husk of the divine dragon Volcanica. They fucking won. Damn. Yeah, also they surpassed, the two big magicians. Ooh. Damn. They did it. They beat it. Yeah, so this really is, oh man. We really are approaching the finale. This is going to be a 5-volume arc. I expected it, and yeah, we're getting a 5-volume arc. That's it. Because if Al doesn't have the dragon, he's fucked, right? Realistically, he's fucked. Ooh. He probably has another trick or two up his sleeve, but this is it. This is the determining factor for the whole fight. Or like this whole war, essentially. And then Roy's also presumably lost. Like, dude. Dude, this is like the actual end game for Al. He has a few allies still up. He doesn't even have a few allies still up. Heinkel is presumably maybe just beaten up, right? Considering his scenario, he's still alive, but he's beaten up probably. Roy's probably lost. Volcanica Al has lost. It's literally just Ye. It's literally just Ye. Him and Ye aren't accomplishing shit. It does not matter that he has his territory and all that. That's it for him. That's it. He's got to wrap it up, right? It's now or never. Nether? No, he's going to the nether. It's now or never. Sorry about that. For me hitting it. Yeah, wow. Damn. All right, that was good. That was a very good volume. Obviously, I still have to read the segment, which I'll do off stream, right? I'll do it before, and I go to bed and everything. That'll be my nice bedtime reading. But yeah, wow, that was a very strong volume. Hold on, let me pull something up here. I think okay, fair enough. Still, that is like still relevant, but fair enough. All right. Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's what I knew is even if it's only a few sentences or sentences, I knew that would be pretty big. I mean, I could just if it's let me check it. Let me check it. If I don't show it, but I read it, is there an issue? Like, what would I have a potential issue with Kadokawa if I do that? I assume not, but I am a little worried, right? Because that is like a tough, thing to kind of fight, but fair enough. Uh, okay, yeah, fair enough. So, okay, we're gonna avoid showing it. I'm just gonna read it. There is, if somehow the stream were to be seen in that regard, there would be potential issue. But I'll just read it just because. Okay. The hexacolored spire that pierced heaven and earth gradually unraveled before their eyes. The sky that had faded to a dull gray slowly regained its natural color, and before long, as if having recalled why it was called blue, the azure sky began to clear. With such scenery before him, Roswell saw tears falling from the eyes of Ezo beside him. Whether they were of joy or vexation, it was clear that he had been overcome with emotion. Although it had taken two people to perform, Sorry, I got mixed up there. Roswell and Ezo had nevertheless accomplished a great feat engraved for the first time in the history of magic. Groupings of 4 and 2 colors, the utmost extremity of magical control, formulation of a technique that did not permit any gaps whatsoever, and the ultimate harmony that could not have been manifested were there to have been a lag of even an instant that had surmounted the divine dragon's dragon halo. Roswell's diligent studies and Ezo's research, if either were to have been missing, this magic would have never been realized. However, one day, I'll manage to manifest this technique even by myself. As Ezo bombasted while shedding ceaseless tears, Roswell smiled at his side profile. Neither was it out of exasperation, nor was it sarcasm. Indeed, that was the very essence of a magician. Visualization was important in magic. If it could be visualized, then anything could be accomplished. That was magic. Isn't that right, teacher? As Roswell mothered those words, his body began to tip over, and it was about to slowly collapse onto the ground. Ezo immediately reached out to try and support him, but alas, given how immensely exhausted he was, he collapsed first. Then, as the falling Roswell seemed like he was about to crush Ezo under him, made it in time. Good news. At a precarious juncture, that calm voice and those strong arms successfully saved Roswell from falling down, and Ezo from being squashed. Having soared through the skies during the battle, Klein had shattered a star before returning to stand beside them. The versatile steward had at some point put his monocle back on and retracted his black horns. However, his everyday perfect appearance was flashily disheveled. It was a form quite unusual and unbefitting of him. Even so, outside of your butler uniform, you are mostly unharmed. Dragonkin are truly overpowered. Master, if I may be so bold as to correct you, it is not because I am a dragonkin, but because I, as the dragonkin of the divine dragon, am simply special. Assertion. So we really are quite proud after all. It was your receptacle's fault that we ended up like this, you know. Don't point at me when saying that. It is merely that I cannot stand up because my back, no, because my entire body has gone limp. Having fallen face first, Ezo was unable to stand up, and yet he did not admit defeat. As if to express sentiments of lament, Klein shrugged his shoulders at that demeanor. But truly, it was a wonderful quality. You've changed. You've used to be more of a transcendent, detached type. In that case, I could say the same words to you. Return. Were you not the one who was supposed to be clever and underhanded, content to remain a mere mediocre magician? Confirmation. Klein narrowed his eyes across his monocle, having perfectly guessed Roswell's thinking. Certainly, he had intended on that, and yet Roswell had not done so. Getting back up after having failed, he had enacted a recklessness he had never imagined he would. That was simply that I realized that all these days I hadn't been walking alone after all. At Roswell's answer, Klein and for some reason Ezo both fell silent. Though perhaps that reason is a bit too obvious. While only natural for Klein, with whom he had been acquainted with a long time, when hypermagic had been invoked a moment ago. Oh shit! Oh! I'm sorry, that might have been loud. Damn, that is the line. Oh fuck, I didn't take that in. Wow. There it is. Wow. Oh. That's it. So we're fine. I mean, I feel like we've gotten. Have we gotten some of the lines? I don't remember if we got some of the lines before. I don't remember how often, if we have, or even if we did. I don't feel like I remember that many happening, or if any at all. If this is the first one, then that's crazy. We've had Julius then. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so it was Julius, Priscilla, now Roz. But that's crazy though, right? Like I'm not the only one who thinks that's wild, right? The fact that we got like our third one now and we're at arc 9. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way. Some people might treat that like that's I'm saying that's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It's just wild that we're at the third one at arc 9. Oof. I think, I've seen some theories about what people say about Felix's line. I think I know when we're gonna hear that. I think I think it's exactly what we all think it is in terms of what they're gonna be dealing with as a threat, and it's gonna be related in some sense. Mm, mm. Let me finish this up, I guess. Uh, uh, Failed to conceal his own sentiments and prayers after all. Well, I am quite accustomed to such intermingling of the consciousness. But how did you manage to remain fine, Ezo-kun? Normally you would end up going insane. Don't speak of such frightening matters so casually. Likely it is a blessing of the books of the dead. While I was a standby at the watchtower, I learned the technique to close off my heart in order to read the books of the dead. I see. This is a magician. Understanding. He somewhat felt that Klein had settled on a bit of a rude conclusion, but he would not touch upon it here. More importantly, that which they ought to prioritize. Master, we have certainly fulfilled the duty with which we have been entrusted. Completion. However, that's right. As Klein left his words half finished, Roswell silently breathed out and looked into the distance, the same direction as both Klein and the grounded Ezo. He cast his gaze beyond that horizon. During the battle against the divine dragon, the rocky wasteland that had been completely terraformed from before, further beyond even that, the final destination of the Aldebaran troop, the Grand Mogulad Geyser. Okay, yeah, I was just checking to see how long it was. At the end of the battle that sundered heaven and earth, when the divine dragon had sent its dragonkin off to go intercept a star, it was confronted with two possible options: the elimination of the magicians, the fulfillment of its role, or of its own role. It would definitely win. Before the surging purple lightning and unleashed great magic, such arrogance had been lost. Hence, the dragon followed the conviction of the personality dwelling within its dragon husk, prioritized the negotiation of the worst possibility. The unleashed breath amidst for a spot far removed from the battlefield, dashing straight towards it. Surrounded by a belt of mountains, a colossal hole through the land perforated at their feet, the Grand Mogulad Geyser. What could be peered from the ground was merely a pale blue surface of water, but lurking underneath, entwined through an intricate system of deep, subterranean veins of water and magma, was an enormous cavern without peer in this world. That cavern tunneled very, very deep down to the very bottom of the world, leading even beyond the great waterfall. To the Grand Mogulad Geyser, a breath was delivered. That torrent of white heat was swallowed by the geyser's mouth, a thunderous cacophony quaking the bedrock. That instant, the water's surface, having appeared exceedingly still, began to rumble and erupt. The phenomenon was neither an explosion that fissured the land, nor was it an eruption that spouted fire. Roaring as if heaven and earth had been inverted. A silver column of water towered up from the geyser's mouth, far higher than the scale of a few hundred meters. It surpassed even the peaks of the surrounding mountain range, as if it pierced the heavens. The water pillar basked in the rays of the sun, shimmering in 7 colors, while scattering vapor and clangor. It rained a tremendous amount of water droplets down onto the ground. When the fountain ceased, a brand new cavern would be bored into the land. That was a great cavern of a scale inconceivable of the surface, and when the mouth of that abyss opened up beyond the light and vapor, awaiting beyond would be a sky differing to the one present above. The final roar of the divine dragon served as a surefire awakening, rousing the Grand Mogulad Geyser from its slumber. Following Star's journey to put an end to Natsuki Subaru was nigh on its coda. Ooh. Okay, I spoke too soon. I spoke way too soon in regards to Al. That was that was the final damn. Yeah, there we go. So that explains the cover. So that's wild. The cover was actually a spoiler to all of us. Huh. Debate decided to spoil everybody with that cover. Like we didn't even have that chapter prior. Wow. That's wild. That's something I'm curious about, right? Um fucking me making weird nerdy sort of comparison, but it's the most obvious recent one. Um it reminds me a lot of obviously, Deltarune's fountains and all that. And it's like, oh yeah, if you strike the earth in this specific fucking way, you make this fountain and you transfer to a different world, right? It kind of reminds me of that, and it does make me wonder. Obviously, neither story kind of, take from each other at all, of course. But it does make me wonder if there's a similarity there in the sense that, yeah, like if that geyser somehow leads to Earth, because we don't know much about the waterfall other than, yeah, supposedly people come from there, right? But they never show up from there because Subaru didn't, right? So, ooh, excuse me. Or rather, we just don't know um, if there had been someone who showed up there, but we know Subaru hasn't, right? So it kind of makes you wonder in that regard of like getting there. What is the, I'm gonna say, incantation to do that, because obviously it's not a geyser, or at least I assume it could be, right? It could be somewhere else that that sort of thing happened. Um, wait a minute. Wait a fucking minute. I think you're right. That sneaky, mm, that sneaky motherfucker putting that in there. I think that's right. I think that geyser probably does lead to Earth. I think that is genuinely what it is. Holy shit, you know what? You know what? He has the no kill rule, right? Let's assume he has no intention of killing Subaru, right? It's getting rid of him and that's it. That does it. All he's got to do is throw that shit in there. Doesn't matter if Beatrice goes as well, whatever, she goes as well. Who cares, right? But that's a no kill, and it gets rid of him. And we have this cover to show that it might. I think that's, yeah, no, I fully agree. I am 100% there. I think that geyser is just going to straight up beat to Earth. I think that is a geyser that leads to Earth. There is a chance someone new pops up. Probably not, but I mean, shit, right? Wow. That's totally what it is. That's totally what it is. Fuck. Reminder, big reminder, we didn't even have this chapter info until the fucking volume came out. Until the actual physical volume came out. Because the posted chapter isn't like that. The web novel chapter of it is not like that. Okay, Tepe. Okay, just put that in the light novel. Why not? I also noticed when I was reading that entire thing, uh, it feels like he has presumably an editor on board that goes, this is way too purple, because a lot of the, you know, he's mentioned before that's like, oh yeah, I love reading like, or I love like, occasionally just going through a dictionary and just running through all these different words that I can use for the story and everything. That felt a lot more, maybe not concise. Concise is the wrong word because that sounds like it's like bad. Um, but he pulls a lot of stuff out when he is writing that felt a lot more like, yeah, here's a lot of very verbose writing, but not too extreme that a lot of people might be stun locked, right? It is kind of interesting to read that. Regardless of that, though, holy shit. Wow. That is massive. Oof. Ooh. I'm glad I did that on stream. If I did that off stream, I was going to be pissed. I was going to be pissed at myself. Wow. That totally leads to Earth. That's absolutely why. Because here's the thing, it's a parallel. Rem is on the other one, right? And then the geyser is in the background. It's totally that. It is totally, because this is the first volume. This is where everything starts. So that's totally what it is. Wow. Fuck. Now I'm curious on how you activate the geyser, right? This is like, yeah, that's true. That exactly. Yeah, fuck. So it's totally just to throw him in and get him the fuck out of there, and that's it. Now I'm curious because okay, obvious thing with the geyser is that it activated, right? And it activated via Volcanica shooting, the fire, all that. Uh, that's understandable, but we don't have the in-depth details of it, right? I compared it to like the Deltarune fountains. With that series, we know how you do that, right? They've made it abundantly clear with that series. Oh yeah, here's the instructions, but we don't know the rest of the details regarding that, right? This is the opposite, or at least it feels like that, where it's here's a location, here's presumably what it does, right? Here's all this, general, vague but kind of info we have. Whether or not it actually goes to Earth, we don't know, but it probably does. But then it's like, oh yeah, actually activating it, we're not gonna know, right? Probably for a while, right? Either, in my opinion, either we find out how that whole geyser works within the next volume, or it's end of the series. In my opinion, it's one of those. It's one of those two, like the ultimatum of it's the next volume, or it's end of the series. Oh man, fuck, that was good. That was really good. You guys get to see all the claw marks Kobe left on a chair when I leave him unsupervised for like 1 second. He actually did. I don't know. You know what? There were scratch marks on this before, but they've kind of faded. I guess they were kind of temporary. I wanted to do something here. I'm gonna change something up. So we have this. I'd like to change this because I don't like using the word peak unless I'm being very literal, unless I'm saying absolute best of the series, right? I'm gonna do something very brave. No, yeah, thank you so much. We're doing that because I don't like using peak unless it is the best of the series. And the reason we're doing that is should be obvious. We have one volume left. Tepe is going to have to try to disappoint me, right? That will be a attempt if he wants to disappoint me. It belongs here. It absolutely belongs here. Man, that was good. I'm looking at this again. Arc 4 should be there. I feel like giving Arc 4 a B is kind of fucked up. That it's been that way for a while. I get that, but I'm realizing now. I'm like, I probably should give that a B. I think I was being, or not B, an A. Sorry, I think I was being a little bit harsh giving it a B because I do really like Arc 4. I just think it's weaker than the rest of the big arcs, other than 7, of course. But yeah, I think seeing it there with 7 when I have problems with 7 is like, see that's different. But yeah, I think it belongs here. It's good. This is an absurdly good arc. This will be S+ from now on. I don't think this series... Well, I think Arc 6 is still going to be obviously my favorite, and I think it's one of the best things I've read. It's literally my favorite arc ever. Yeah, it's like... This was something... This has made... Hold on, let me see. Can I find my character tier list? I'm going to go on my channel. Hold on. I want to go on my channel and see if I can find my character tier list. This was a while back. There's all my Act 2 teasers. Those were fun to make. I remember making those. There's all the reaction videos. There's the Rumble. I don't remember how far back this was. Well, okay, wait. This is where Arc 8 is, and I made a tier list when I did Arc 8. So let's find where I finished Arc 8. Was that Arc 8? That was, yeah. Yeah, there's 9. Uh, Here it is. Yep, okay. Let me pull up my character tier list here. Let's pull it up there. Boom, there we go. Blind was there because, you know, I wasn't huge on his, so here's some revisions I would do, right? Don't mind the top one. Okay. Revisions I would make. Al's probably going higher than Wilhelm. I have to think on that because I need to properly sit down and read the, I think EX6, is it? Yeah, I believe it's EX6. When that properly comes out and everything, I need to sit down, read that. I think that'll determine whether or not Al is higher. But there's a good chance he could be, right? So Al could definitely be. I could almost argue for Melee, but she hasn't gotten a ton. I like the moments she's had this volume. Who else? Who do we have here that I'm willing to raise up? I think I know who's next. Yeah, Petra. Petra right here. Petra's going... Petra is either going to the bottom of S or to the very top of A. Petra was fantastic for this whole arc, but especially this volume. This volume, she went insane. The end of the previous volume as well, she was going crazy. But this volume, like specifically, she went insane. She either goes up here, I don't know if this can be seen at all, or up here. I hope that could be seen. One of those two places. Client I would definitely put up into an actual tier. I don't, again, I think at times his character can be written in a very weird way, and it almost can come off as very creepy, and all that. But in terms of how he was this volume, he was pretty damn good. I'd be willing to probably put him somewhere around B. I would have to think about where, but probably somewhere around B, right? I think he did a great job in this volume solidifying himself. No, yeah. Yeah, they're probably just gonna be ready to jump him right as soon as they leave. Roswell, I wouldn't mind raising up. He's developed even more as a character. I wouldn't mind bringing him a little bit higher, potentially to A, right? I wouldn't be opposed to that. Maybe like above Ryuzu, I think would probably be a good spot. Who else? Who else do we have here? I'm like looking over every character. Felt could go higher. Felt had some great moments. I definitely could put her higher up. Maybe A, but maybe just higher end of B, right? Like, I don't know if I'll put her higher than Fourier or anything like that, but we'll see. Right? I might think on that a bit. I mean, I'll have to. The next volume presumably might be the last. Yay, I think, was in here in the side story stuff because we didn't know her yet, or at least I didn't know her yet. Everybody else who read the side stories did. I did not. So, there she is, right here. Yeah, Yay. Where would I put Yay? Hmm. Ye's a good character. I like her dynamic with Al a lot. She either gets really high B or she gets low A, in my opinion, so far. I think I really like her dynamic with Al. I think she goes somewhere there. Oh, and then Roy. Yeah, we can't forget Roy. Also, Liliana, I would raise. This was before the Arc 5 episodes were coming out. So I was, still not enjoying her character too much. But when I got to see the proper extent of it, I would definitely put her higher. She can go in B. I'll put her in B. Heinkel might go higher, right? I might be willing to put him definitely higher just because his character is so damn interesting. Yeah, Heinkel potentially will go higher. Roy, yeah, absolutely, he'll go higher. I'll probably put him with his brother. He'll go much higher. He's proved himself. He's absolutely proved himself. I thought he was a jobber for the longest while. He's proven himself with this, or yeah, I guess yeah, essentially this volume really did a good job proving him. So I think he can go alongside his brother. There's gonna be some big changes to this list. There's gonna be some pretty big changes. Not much to top 10 just yet. Again, we have to find out in terms of, I have to read EX6 and then kind of compare it to the full version of Arc 9 when we have that, but we'll see. But yeah, some big changes everywhere else, I think. Petra's probably going in S. I'm gonna be so for real. She's probably going low S. Yeah, a lot to be said about this arc. But the fact that I'm enjoying it this much, like, proves just this, right? It proves why I'm willing to go this far. This is damn good. I'm so excited for the next volume. This is gonna be phenomenal. Yeah, I guess I will work on the review tomorrow, and I'll try and not even try, because reviews don't take that long to edit. I won't lie. I mean, I've made that clear before. But I'll try and have it up for Sunday, finally. And then, yeah, we'll do other stuff in the meantime. I mean, I'll be working on Act 2. I'll be working on the next big video for the channel, which I think will be very fun. I wanted to aim for a few big videos for the channel. I might be able to, but I won't lie. I wouldn't be surprised if I get so busy with shit that we only unfortunately get one. Just how it is, but you know what? If we can at least get one, and then I can focus on the next few for next year, that works out. We continue. As long as we improve, that's what matters. So I'll try and get a few more before the end of the year, obviously including the talks about video at the very end. But we'll see. And yeah, other than that, we have the Rumble on the way. That's exciting. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. So we'll have the review up Sunday. This has been very fun. And I guess we'll be back the next time we stream with the finale to all this, right? To Arc 9. That's going to be quite interesting. Pretty damn interesting. Oh boy. I can't wait. As well as we might be back in the meantime also with Persona occasionally, because me and my brother want to get back to doing our him playing Yakuza, me playing Persona sort of thing. So I might occasionally be back with that. Or other stuff, who knows? There's a certain analog horror series that if at any point, I could just out of nowhere, I have to stream my reaction to, because the new episode might drop, and then I'm gonna have to stream the week after, because I think the next one comes out the week after is what was said. So that might happen. In the meantime, probably not. Tepe's probably gonna get right back to writing very soon. So at most the Persona thing will happen. Who knows? Anyways, that's it for tonight. Sorry for keeping you all here so late. It's already like 12. It's literally 12 on the dot for me. Fuck. Yeah, so sorry about how late we had to go with this. That was just the unfortunate circumstance of this. But we're done. We did it. Finally. I had a great time. Hope you all did too. Take care. Have a nice night. Stay safe. And I guess I'll see you all on Sunday for the review, probably. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'll see you all for the next stream. Like for reason.